Waves crash against the cliffs below a massive castle. Inside, a man begins telling young Kieran an interesting bedtime story. Reading from an old, illustrated book, he reveals that in the world's deepest ocean, mermaids are real. He explains that these creatures are more beautiful than any human could ever be. But the story comes with a grave warning. Despite their incredible beauty, one must always beware, because mermaids are not human, and that difference is a dangerous one. The storybook lesson gets darker. The man explains how mermaids use their enchanting songs to create powerful illusions, luring men to their doom beneath the waves. It's a fate terrifying enough to shatter any man's sanity. Suddenly, a voice cuts through the memory, calling out Kieran's name. His golden eyes snap open, pulling him back to the present. He's an adult now, lying in his grand chamber. Noticing his troubled state, his attendant, Hethnal, asks him what is wrong, concerned by his sudden awakening. Instead of his attendant, Maluzin is now by his side. With his head resting in her lap, Kieran explains that his nightmare was actually a memory. He remembers the late emperor reading him a terrifying story when he was just a boy, a dark fairy tale about killer mermaids. His mood shifts as he reaches up, gently touching her face. His golden eyes bore into hers as he asks a chilling question: is she also like the monsters for his childhood stories, the kind that bring men to their ruin? Kieran's intensity grows, his questions turning into accusations. He reminds Maluzin that he first took her as a battle trophy. A vision flashes through his mind, the mermaid, ethereal and trapped, with him as her unyielding captor. He demands to know if she has wanted him gone this whole time. Is it because he refused to let her go, even chasing her down when she tried to flee? He asks if her resentment grew because he bound her to the castle, making it impossible for her to ever leave his side. His accusations hang in the air, but Kieran just lets out a dark chuckle. He supposes she really might end his life, just like the monsters in the stories, all to return to the ocean. For a tense moment, Maluzin just tightens her grip on his face, her silence speaking volumes. Then, her expression softens. She tells him not to worry and offers a different solution: she'll sing him a lullaby. In her heart, she makes a vow. She could never, ever harm the man she loves, no matter what fate demands. As Kieran finally sleeps, soothed by her voice, Maluzin's true purpose comes to light. The human fairy tales have it all wrong. Mermaids await the day they can leash in, not to bring ruin, but for a sacred quest. The waves lapping at their new feet marks the beginning of their search. They are not predators, but seekers looking for their one true soulmate, their Serenhide. This single, destined person is the entire reason for their journey into the human world, the one they are meant to find above all others. For a mermaid, her Serenhide is the one who chooses her, who will share the rest of their life with her. A memory flashes in Maluzin's mind. Kieran holds her close, his touch gentle yet firm. He leans in, the space between them disappearing. Out of breath, she whispers his name, and he says hers in return. Their intense connection is undeniable. This moment feels like destiny. Maluzin recalls the exact point she knew he was the one, remembering the words he had spoken to her. The moment he said her name, Maluzin knew he was her Serenhide. A memory flashes of a beautiful night by the sea, the two of them completely lost in their own world. In her heart, she called him her Kieran, her everything, wishing they could stay like that forever. But a cold, harsh voice from her past suddenly cuts through the sweet memory. It delivers a brutal reality check, reminding her that for a mermaid and a human, a happy ending is just a fairy tale, a dream that can never come true. The voice from her past was merciless, hammering home the cruel truth. A mermaid and a human could never promise each other eternal love. She would only get one chance. After that, she was supposed to leave her Serenhide for good. The voice gave a terrifying, unfinished warning about the consequences of staying. The memory fades, leaving Maluzin devastated. Watching Kieran sleep, tears silently fall from her eyes onto his cheek. Her fairy tale was turning into a tragedy, and she was trapped by a fate she couldn't escape. Her final tear drips onto his shirt, sealing her decision. With a heart heavy with sorrow, Maluzin whispers a final farewell to the sleeping Kieran. She makes a silent vow to love him, and only him, for the rest of her life. A ghostly image of her embracing him flashes in her mind. A sweet, painful memory of what she must now abandon. The vision fades, replaced by the vast, lonely ocean under the moonlight. Her promise hangs in the air, echoing across the waves. Her love for him will last forever, even if they can't. In an age when legends were still whispered as truth, the Empire had a man they called the Grim Reaper. This was Kieran. On the battlefield, the clash of steel was the only sound as he moved with deadly purpose. It was said his intense golden eyes alone could end a fight. He was considered a monster who served his empire, leaving devastation in his wake without a second thought. As he turned his back on the fallen, one terrified survivor could only scream, watching the Reaper walk away. The aftermath of his work was always grim. A heartbroken old man, Hethnal, cradled his son's lifeless body, screaming in despair. He demanded to know what they had done to deserve such cruelty from this terrible tyrant. But the man standing before him offered no answers. His sword dripped crimson onto coal floor, the only reply to the old man's grief. This merciless angel of death, the monster of the empire, was known by one name, Archduke Kieran, Lord of Truk. Hethnal screams that his family was framed for rebellion, desperately pleading about his years of loyal service. But Kieran is completely unmoved. He takes a step closer, his voice like ice as he states his only missions. The emperor wants this entire archduchy eliminated. Enraged, Hethnal calls Kieran a pathetic dog for serving such a savage master, screaming that his sins will drag him to hell. In response, Kieran's blade flashes through the air. With one swift, merciless motion, the old man's desperate cries are silenced for good. With the grim task complete, Kieran stands over the old Archduke's fallen form. He coldly reminds the man that he had been warned to stop resisting, adding that he should have met his end with more dignity. Kieran then turns his attention to the room, a macabre gallery of hunting trophies. He scoffs at the old man's hypocrisy. For someone who cursed him to hell, Hethnal certainly wasn't an angel. Suddenly, a strange rattling sound from behind a giant red tapestry cuts through the silence, and Kieran's focus immediately shifts. Curious, Kieran rips the massive red tapestry aside. What he finds leaves him speechless. Submerged in the giant glass tank is a girl with vibrant pink hair and startling blue eyes. She stares back, an ethereal creature straight out of myth. He is completely captivated. Just then, his Aiden enters the room to report on their progress, but Kieran immediately silences him with a raised hand. Ian, confused, follows Ajut's intense gaze and stops dead. He stammers in disbelief, realizing he's looking at a real, life mermaid. Ian notes he knew the old Archduke was a collector, but never expected to find a real creature from a legend. He urgently warns Kieran about the old curse, that harming a mermaid leads to one's own demise. Kieran scoffs at the superstition, coldly stating the previous lord fell due to his rebellion, not some mythical beast. Trapped in the tank, Maluzin presses her hand against her eyes, pleading for help. Unfazed by the supposed danger, Kieran declares that everything in the castle now belongs to the emperor, and they are taking it all. As Ian asks if they are taking the mermaid, Kieran confirms it, telling his men to search the other rooms as well. Overhearing the plan, Maluzin panics. Suddenly, a loud slam echoes through the room. Kieran turns to see the mermaid ramming her body against the glass, desperate to break free. While his aide looks on in horror, Kieran smirks, finding her struggle entertaining. He coldly remarks that at this rate, she'll destroy herself long before she can attack them. But from inside the tank, Maluzin glares back, her determination unwavering. As Maluzin desperately tries to escape, Kieran draws his sword with a cruel smirk. He remarks that perhaps she's just trying to join her old master. A horrified Ian asks if he's really going to eliminate her. Kieran confirms it, stating his orders from the emperor are to get rid of everyone in the castle. Maluzin pleads for him to wait, but he ignores her. With a powerful swing, he brings his sword down on the glass. The tank cracks violently before exploding in a shower of water and sharp fragments. As the tank shatters, a torrent of water throws Maluzin forward. Instead of being swept away, she uses the momentum to lunge directly at Kieran, tackling him to the ground. A horrified Ian screams for the Archduke as the mermaid lands on top of him, pinning him amidst the spreading water. Panting, Maluzin grabs his collar, her fierce blue eyes locking with his golden ones. Kieran, stunned into silence, just stares back, completely caught off guard by her defiant move. For the first time, the mythical creature has the upper hand. Pinned beneath the mermaid, Kieran slowly reaches up, touching her face. Lost in the moment, Maluzin notices his golden eyes for the first time. As she stares, his thumb gently presses against the gills on her neck, his expression shifting to pure shock. This intense meeting marks the beginning of their story. A tale from the recent past about a mythical mermaid and the one human she was fated to meet. Their shared destiny, a bond between two worlds, is about to unfold in the most unexpected way. Maluzin's brief moment of defiance is cut short. In a flash, Kieran seizes control, effortlessly snatching her up. He summons his subordinate, Ian, who immediately snaps to attention. Looking at the captured mermaid with cold possession, Kieran gives a chilling order. Ian is to take her, put her in a tank of some kind, and bring her to him immediately. The Archduke has just claimed his prize, and he has no intention of letting her go. Kieran's footsteps echo in the vast, silent room. He stands alone, his golden eyes scanning the lavish space as moonlight spills through the massive window. This is the second time he's been in this specific chamber, and his thoughts immediately drift to the pink-haired mermaid he just captured. He had given his orders to his subordinates, demanding no further questions until he had time to think. Now, in the quiet, the full weight of his decision to possess the mythical creature begins to settle in. He can't get her defiant face out of his head. Kieran touches a stone statue, his mind drifting to a powerful memory. He recalls the day the kingdom of Barton fell. Its king knelt before him, crown on the floor, desperately surrendering the war. He promised his kingdom would become an archduchy and swear loyalty to the empire, pleading for mercy. An older nobleman watched the scene, speaking Kieran's name with a heavy tone. But Kieran's expression never changed. His golden eyes remained completely cold, unmoved by the sight of a broken king begging for his life. His memory flashes back to a sharp command: watch closely. With a single, powerful push, the massive stone statue topples over, shattering into countless pieces across the floor. The violent memory fades, leaving Kieran standing over the same wreckage in the present. He mutters to himself that this place is as unpleasant as ever. Just then, Ian's voice cuts through the quiet. He announces that they've brought the mermaid. Flanked by guards, a struggling Melusin is presented to the Archduke. Ian hesitates, explaining that he knows Kieran ordered her put in a tank. But there's a problem. The problem Ian mentioned becomes obvious. With an amused smirk, Kieran notes that the mermaid has grown legs. Hethnal explains she transformed as soon as the water dried off. When the guards let go, Melusin collapses to the floor, her new limbs too weak to stand on. Kieran immediately closes the distance, grabbing her chin to force her gaze upwards. He declares that the previous Archduke was hiding a truly valuable piece in his castle. Melusin trembles under his cold, possessive touch, terrified by the man now looming over her. Kieran's gaze lands on the fresh marks covering Melusin's skin. With a cold smirk, he asks Ian what happened, scolding him for damaging his new battle trophy, and ordering him to take better care of it. A panicked Ian swears he didn't touch her, explaining the injuries were already there when Kieran shattered the tank. He suggests the former Archduke was the one responsible for her condition. As Melusin trembles, Kieran's thoughts turn to the dark legends surrounding her kind. Kieran recalls the dark legends about mermaids. A brutal memory surfaces of the former Archduke, Hethnal, consumed by greed. Believing mermaids shed tears of pearls, he subjected Melusin to cruel treatment to force them out. He furiously demanded to know why she wouldn't cry, screaming for her to give him the pearls. The terrible flashback fades, leaving Melusin trembling on the floor, lost in her fear. A calm voice cuts through her terror. It's Kieran, quietly telling her to look at him and asking if she can hear him. Melusin is still lost in her terror when Kieran's quiet voice breaks through. Still trembling, she wonders if this new Archduke is just like the last one. Another cruel man with a twisted sense of ownership. Kieran's golden eyes remain fixed on her, studying her intently. Instead of another harsh move, he gently brushes his gloved hand against her cheek. He quietly admits that he likes her eyes. This sudden, gentle act, paired with his possessive gaze, only confuses and terrifies her more. She can barely make a sound, completely overwhelmed. Just as Kieran tries to reach her, Ian suddenly jumps in the way, pleading for the Archduke to stand back. Kieran is not having it. He forcefully blocks on, his golden eyes flashing with irritation as his guards draw their blades. A nervous Ian quickly explains the old legends, warning that a mermaid's song can steal a person's very soul. But Kieran cuts him off, completely fed up with the folklore. While the men argue, a confused Melusin slowly begins to rise from the floor, a strange light starting to surround her. As the argument heats up, a weak voice suddenly cuts through the noise. Both Ian and Kieran freeze, turning their attention back to the floor. Totally confused by the unexpected sound, Kieran demands to know what she just said. Instead of answering, Melusin reaches out and weakly tugs on his coat. Surrounded by a brilliant pink aura, she floats up to meet his intense gaze. It wasn't a curse or a terrifying scream. She simply looks into his eyes and quietly tells him that she's hungry, leaving everyone completely speechless. With everyone frozen in shock, Melusin weakly repeats her request, asking Kieran to feed her. The Archduke turns to Ian, completely bewildered, asking if he heard her correctly. A pale Ian confirms that the legendary creature just asked for a meal. Suddenly, a low chuckle escapes Kieran, quickly turning into a full, throated laugh that echoes through the hall. His guards are stunned. Looking down at the confused mermaid, Kieran grins, remarking he never expected to find such an interesting trophy as he reaches down to lift her chin. Ignoring Ian's frantic warnings, Kieran pulls the mermaid closer, a dangerous grin on his face. He asks what might happen if they took back to the Empire. As he speaks, he gently brushes her cheek with his gloved hand, examining his strange new prize with intense curiosity. With his decision made, the scene shifts to a grand ship slicing through the waves on its way back home. Standing on the deck, Ian looks toward the horizon, warning that they are about to sail straight into a difficult headwind. On the ship's deck, Kieran commands his crew to raise the sails, his voice cutting through the wind. The grand vessel plows through the waves as they head for home. Ian approaches the Archduke, remarking on their long journey. He thinks back on their recent, brutal campaigns, crushing nomads and ending a rebellion, victories that have kept them away for half a year. Sensing Ian is beating around the bush, Kieran grows impatient. He bluntly tells his aide to spit out whatever he has to say, leaving a stunned Ian stammering for words. Finally getting to his point, Ian nervously suggests they release the mermaid when they pass the Sea of Berceuse. He even reminds the Archduke of the Emperor's command to take no prisoners. Kieran immediately shuts him down, stating that the order doesn't apply. To him, she isn't human, she's just a fish. He then reveals he plans to keep her as a kind of display animal. Ian is completely shocked by the idea of keeping her like a pet, but Kieran just smirks, possessively wondering what his fish is up to now. Inside the ship, Melisande huddles in a corner, shivering uncontrollably. The human clothes are torn, and she looks weak. Kieran approaches, bluntly asking what's wrong with. Ian points out that she keeps tearing at the restrictive clothing and her complexion is off. Annoyed, Kieran reminds his aide that he ordered her to be fed. Ian explains they tried giving her some cooked fish from the castle. He clarifies that they found buckets of raw fish in her room, assuming it was her food. Kieran scoffs, realizing a mermaid obviously wouldn't eat soup. Kieran kneels before the shivering mermaid, startling her. Leaning in, he commands her to stay still as he reaches for her face. Melusine flinches, but he gently touches her lips, examining her like a strange specimen. He finds it peculiar. Her mouth is surprisingly warm, yet her face is so pale she looks like she's about to die. Melusine breaks his train of thought with a weak cough, desperately mumbling that she needs water. This whole situation is completely baffling cold-hearted Archduke. Ian panics, asking what they should do and suggesting they release the mermaid before it's too late. Annoyed, Kieran tells him to get the water she's asking for. Ian quickly explains they already tried that. She wouldn't even touch the pitcher they left for her. A cold realization hits Kieran. He snatches the jug, reminding his aide that she is a mermaid and has needs beyond drinking. Before Ian can even process what that means, Kieran dumps the entire pitcher of water directly over Melusine's head, leaving his subordinate speechless. The cool water splashes over Melusine, and the effect is instant. She lets out a relieved breath as life floods back into her shimmering blue eyes. Kieran, still holding the empty pitcher, asks if she feels better now. Stunned by the sudden relief, she can only manage to thank him weakly. His solution having worked, Kieran turns to leave, ordering a guard to watch her and to report when she's fully recovered. But as he walks away, a panicked cry escapes her lips. He freezes, hearing a faint, desperate plea for him not to go. Kieran freezes in his tracks. From the floor, Melusine desperately lunges forward, grabbing his leg and begging him to wait. Annoyed, he turns back, coldly stating he has no desire to take on a needy animal, but her next move shocks him. She rises to her knees and gently touches his face. Before the Archduke can process this, she pulls him down toward her. He's completely stunned by her boldness, demanding to know what she is. Overwhelmed, Melusine can only stammer out a broken plea. With a surge of energy, Melusine's eyes shine brightly as she begs Kieran not to go. Before the stunned Archduke can move, she lunges forward and grabs his leg. With surprising strength, she yanks him off balance, pulling him right down to her level. Kieran stumbles, completely caught off guard by her sudden boldness. Breathing heavily from the effort, he can only stare in disbelief, demanding to know what on earth she thinks she's doing. Her grip is tight, her desperate intentions a complete mystery to the cold-hearted noble. A chilling memory suddenly floods Melusine's mind. A warning from long ago. She was found once she found her Sarenhide, her fated human mate. She had to get rid of him before falling asleep. The words were a mystery back then. But now, as she watches Kieran's retreating figure, the cryptic prophecy starts to make a terrible kind of sense. A deep, instinctual longing washes over her. She realizes she is simply a mermaid searching for the one destined to live in her memory forever, her Sarenhide. A sweet memory of her mother's embrace surfaces, filled with hopes for a happy future. But the dream instantly twists into a nightmare. She's back on that ship, tangled in a rough net as fishermen laugh down at her. One man holds up a torch, his voice booming with triumph over catching a legendary mermaid. Melusine jerks awake with a gasp, the terror still clinging to her. Confused, she looks down and sees she's in a bathtub. Her shimmering blue tail floats in the water and she can only stare, trying to understand where she is. Lost in a daze, Melusine cups the water in her hands, believing she's finally returned to the ocean. A wave of pure relief washes over her as she thinks she's finally gonna make it. But her hopeful fantasy is cut short by a cold voice observing that her tail is back. She jolts, looking up to see the very same human from before standing over her. It's Kieran. Confused, her tail flaps in the tub as she asks if he gathered all this water just for her, wondering how she should possibly thank him. Melusine panics, realizing she can't speak the human language. Just then, Kieran approaches the tub, asking if she feels better now that she's in real ocean water. He gently touches her face, wondering if his words are getting through at all. His mind drifts to the old legends about a deadly curse that befalls anyone who harms a mermaid. A death curse, he muses. But looking down at her innocent, almost clueless expression, he dismisses the thought. She seems way too simple to be capable of something so dangerous. Gazing into the water, Melusine is mesmerized by her own reflection. Kieran, looking thoroughly unimpressed, sits nearby and uncorks a bottle. Suddenly, it slips from grasp and plummets toward the tub. With lightning-fast reflexes, Maluzin shoots forward and snatches the bottle right out of the air, causing a huge splash. She looks up with a triumphant grin. Chiron is totally shocked by her speed, demanding to know what on earth she thinks she's doing. Unfazed by his cold tone, she just lets out a happy, infectious giggle. Chiron hands Maluzin a small, ornate dagger. She takes it with childlike curiosity, not a hint of fear in her eyes. The sight triggers a memory for Chiron, his father reading him a story long ago. The tale warned that mermaids, despite their beauty, use illusions and songs to drive men completely mad. A dark voice in his mind whispers that Chiron is now facing that same fate. He's hit with a horrifying vision of Hethnal in absolute agony. Snapping back to reality, Chiron's eyes lock onto Maluzin as she innocently slides her finger along the dagger's edge. Completely fascinated by the dagger's shiny surface, Maluzin innocently brushes the flat of the blade against her own cheek. Chiron's expression instantly darkens, and he commands her to drop it. Confused by his harsh tone, she fumbles with the weapon, getting a serious injury on her hand in the process. She cries out, finally realizing the object is meant to cause pain. Utterly exasperated, Chiron decides he's going to teach her how to speak, muttering that a parrot would be an easier student. He then turns and walks away. As Chiron walks toward the door, Maluzin's voice trembles from the tub. She asks if he's leaving again and wonders if it's because she can't speak properly. Desperate, she reaches out, promising to learn as fast as she can if he'll just stay. Her plea echoes in the room, but Chiron doesn't even turn around. He just walks out, and the heavy door slams shut, leaving her completely alone in the silent, dark room. A moment later, Chiron is already on horseback beside Ian, riding away from the castle. A mysterious carriage rolls through the streets as a curious face peeks from a barred window. When a guard asks Vice Commander Ian what's inside, he gets shut down immediately. It's the commander's orders. The townspeople tremble in fear, looking more like they're being conquered than welcoming a hero home. Rumors claim that just looking Archduke Chiron in the eyes will turn you to ash. Ian knows the truth, blaming the late emperor for crafting Chiron's fearsome reputation as the Empire's Great Grim Reaper. Riding alongside the carriage, Ian tells Chiron not to worry about the rumors. He tries to reassure his commander that it's all just talk and will be forgotten soon enough. Chiron coolly agrees, certain that everything will be fine. Meanwhile, inside the rattling crate, the real secret is revealed. A sheet shifts, and a pair of wide blue eyes peek out from the darkness. It's Maluzin, being transported in a wooden box like precious cargo. The Archduke didn't abandon her. He's taking his new prize with him, no matter what. A senior maid spots Anne walking down the grand hall and calls out, asking where she's going. Anne explains she just stopped by the kitchens. One look at the bucket, brimming with fresh squid and fish, makes everything clear. It's feeding time for her. The other maids gossip nearby, saying it must be tough for Anne, a newcomer, to have such a strange task. They admit that ever since she arrived, the Archduke's mysterious guest has been the only thing the entire staff ever talks about. The maids press Anne for juicy details. Is the Archduke's guest really his lover? And is she actually a mermaid? They whisper old legends, claiming that a mermaid's voice is deadly. But Anne isn't buying it. As she walks away from the gossip, she thinks that if those stories were true, she'd be long gone by now. Knocking on the grand doors, she enters the lavish room with a bucket of fresh fish. She cheerfully announces her arrival and apologizes to the pink-haired Miss Mermaid for making her wait for her meal. As Anne looks at the mermaid, she can't help but think how stunningly beautiful she is. Maluzin flashes a dazzling smile and greets the maid with a cheerful, "Hello, Anne," setting the bucket of fish down. Anne gently corrects her, saying her name is Anne. The mermaid tries to repeat it, but can't quite get it right. Anne sighs in fond frustration, wondering why her name is so tricky for Maluzin, who spends all day in the water eating raw fish. But seeing the mermaid's innocent smile, she can't stay annoyed for long. Anne offers Maluzin a squid, remembering it's her favorite from the other day. The mermaid's eyes sparkle with joy as she takes the snack and perfectly says, "Thank you." Anne is thrilled, praising her for remembering her manners. But their sweet moment is interrupted by footsteps approaching the room. The grand doors creak open, and Maluzin's entire demeanor changes. Her attention snaps towards the entrance, and she drops the squid, all thoughts of food forgotten. Seeing her stare so intently, Anne asks if she's waiting for someone. Maluzin just tilts her head, confused by the new word. Anne tries to simplify her question, asking if there's someone Maluzin wants to see. A memory suddenly clicks for the maid. When the mermaid first arrived, a man named Count Ian visited her constantly for the first few months. She wonders aloud if Maluzin is waiting for him. Maluzin, however, just seems confused, repeating the name, Ian, as a question. Her gaze remains locked on the dark figure in the doorway, and she mistakenly thinks that man must be Ian. Seeing a deep blush creep across the mermaid's face, Anne gets giddy. Seeing Maluzin's reaction, Anne teases her, asking what she likes so much about this. Anne. Is it his handsome face or his fancy title? With a huge, blushing smile, Melusine enthusiastically confirms that she likes Anne. Anne finds this a bit strange, considering he hasn't visited lately, but she gently pats the mermaid's head and offers to braid her hair. As Anne gets to work, Melusine drifts into a daydream, recalling a tender moment with the dark-haired man. In her memory, he gently caresses her face. She thinks to herself, "Me human, my Sarenhide." Melusine drifts off, recalling what her mother taught her. She's absolutely certain that the dark-haired man is her fated one, her Sarenhide. Because of this, she can wait for him forever. A little patience is nothing. Snapping back to the present, Anne finishes the beautiful braid. Anne tells the mermaid she's all done and dashes off to find a pretty hair accessory. Left alone, Melusine thinks about how her sisters always said she'd have to wait for her destiny. But her profound moment is ruined when her stomach lets out a massive growl. Mortified, she immediately sinks into the water to hide. The door clicks open, and Melusine turns from her bath, calling out for Anne. But it's not the maid. The brooding Archduke Kiran stands in the doorway, asking who she's looking for. Melusine's face lights up, completely smitten. Kiran leans in close, but only to call her ridiculous and mute before demanding to know why her tail is gone again. Lost in a happy daze and thinking he's her fated Ein. Melusine just stares lovingly, getting no response. Kiran taps the water, pointing to where her legs are instead of a tail. As Melusine sits in the bath, a realization dawns on her. Ever since she arrived, she hasn't been able to turn back into a mermaid. She figures it must be the water. Scooping some up, she excitedly tells the man she believes is Ein that it smells completely different from the ocean. Kiran is totally lost. Getting desperate, she tries again, frantically telling about the water. Confused, Kiran just asks who Ein is suddenly. Melusine freezes as a new voice urgently calls for Miss Mermaid. From the doorway warning, Anne charges into the room, shoving the Archduke hard and sending him stumbling. She immediately places herself in front of Melusine, fiercely demanding to know how he dares to barge in on a lady. Anne yells at him to get out that instant. Kiran, looking more annoyed than anything, slowly rises to his full height. His golden eyes fix on the defiant maid with a chilling calm. He asks if she is absolutely sure she wants to be giving him an order, his voice laced with a quiet threat. Kiran's golden eyes narrow as he asks the maid if she's absolutely certain she wants to order him around. Fired up, Anne screams back, calling him a madman, but her defiance instantly shatters. Her face pales with terror as she finally recognizes who she's yelling at, stammering, "Your Grace." Kiran coldly wonders aloud if he now needs permission to see his own property. Panicked, Anne immediately drops to the floor, desperately begging for forgiveness as Melusine watches the whole insane scene unfold, completely stunned. Trembling on the floor, Anne frantically apologizes, explaining she's new and failed to recognize him. She's so terrified, she declares she deserves to die for her mistake. Kiran looks down on her coldly. While acknowledging she does her job well, he slowly draws his sword. He states that she should know exactly who she serves. Before he can do anything, Melusine jolts to her feet. She screams and leaps out of the bath, grabbing his arm to stop him. Still confused, she desperately yells for Ein to stop, leaving Kiran completely stunned. Clinging to his arm, Melusine pleads that the sword is dangerous and begs him not to use it. Her frantic words snap Kiran from his stupor, and a cruel smirk spreads across his face. He corrects her, telling her that this is a situation where she should be asking for a favor. Confused, Melusine just repeats the word back. He grabs her chin, remarking that he's surprised she can speak at all. He then makes an invasive comment about her body, tightening his grip on her arm to show who's in charge. Kiran holds Melusine close, smugly noting that his little fish now knows to jump into his arms. He then uses the situation for a twisted game. Since she stopped him, he asks what she wants him to do, casually offering to get rid of the maid for her. The suggestion completely baffles Melusine, who doesn't even understand the concept. Hearing this, Anne recoils in absolute terror, pleading for her life. Kiran coldly reminds the maid that she herself had said she deserved this fate, causing her to break down and promise anything to be spared. Kiran continues his twisted lesson, whispering a command into Melusine's ear. He challenges her to use her own words, promising he'll spare the maid's life if she can just say, "Spare her." He wants her to beg. At first, Melusine is utterly lost, repeating the phrase back as a question. But then it clicks. With true desperation in her eyes, she finally pleads for him to spare the girl. As she begs, her robe slips from her shoulder. Flustered and confused, she looks up at him and once again calls him by the wrong name. A muscle in Kiran's jaw twitches at the wrong name. He coldly declares he's a man of his word and shoves Melusine away. The maid Anne rushes forward to catch her before she falls. Kiran then gives Anne a chilling new task: teach Melusine to speak properly. He makes it absolutely clear that his property must know his name, and he never wants to hear the name Ein again. With the threat understood, he sheathes his sword and leaves, leaving a stunned Melusine in the trembling maid's care. Later, Kieran's aide, Ian, approaches him, having heard about the incident with the mermaid and the new maid. He formally apologizes for not training the staff properly, but Kieran, lounging casually, cuts him off. He reveals an unexpected twist. Melusine actually asked him to spare the maid's life. Kieran finds the whole situation bizarre, explaining that nothing irritates him more than watching someone resort to the deepest depths of indignity just to survive. To him, that kind of desperate groveling is the most pathetic display of all. As Kieran dismisses her desperate plea, his mind flashes back to the first time he ever saw Melusine. He can't shake the feeling that there was something undeniably strange about her from the very start. Back in the present, Ian notices the Archduke downing the contents of a small vial. He expresses his concern, pointing out that Kieran's been using the medication more often. Kieran just scoffs, asking if becoming dependent is really worse than his crushing insomnia. He icily states he won't repeat himself and orders Ian to leave. Kieran sets the empty vial down with a sharp clack. He leans back on the lounge, a deep throb pulsing behind his eyes as the medication begins to take hold. Suddenly, mind is thrown into a chaotic storm of memories. A furious nobleman's face appears, screaming that Kieran is nothing but the Emperor's dog. The memory then shifts to a terrified boy, crying that he doesn't want to die. The haunting vision ends with a bloodied man reaching for him, Kieran's name a final, ghostly whisper. The drug-fueled storm in Kieran's mind rages on. A desperate voice from his past begs for salvation, pleading to be saved. But the harsh memory suddenly melts away, replaced by a soft, pink-hued vision of Melusine. He remembers her pleading for the maid's life, then a more intimate moment where she gently says his name. Thrown back into his cold reality, Kieran grips his forehead, tormented by the confusing flood of emotions. He grits his teeth, announcing he's had enough of this mental chaos. Meanwhile, Melusine is making huge progress of her own. With her maid Anne cheering her on, she takes a few trembling steps on her new human legs. She wobbles unsteadily before collapsing into Anne's waiting arms. The maid is absolutely thrilled, celebrating that Melusine walked 2 steps farther than the day before. At this rate, she says they'll be able to go outside soon. Melusine's eyes sparkle with excitement. Thinking it's amazing, she enthusiastically agrees to practice more, ready to master this new skill. Anne beams, explaining that Melusine's progress reminds her of her own little brothers and sister. She shares a warm memory of her 3 younger siblings, revealing she's the oldest child from a big family. Melusine, confused by the concept, asks what siblings are. Anne explains that with her parents always working, she raised the little ones herself. Though they were frustrating and never listened, she declares that she still loves them deeply. Melusine's eyes soften, realizing that by saving Anne, she ensured the maid would one day see her beloved family again. Overcome with emotion, Airfully thanks Melusine, deeply grateful for a second chance at life. Their sweet moment is shattered when a furious woman with gray hair is forcibly escorted out, screaming about why she has to leave. Anne quickly pulls Melusine behind a column to hide from the drama. They overhear the staff explaining their direct orders. The Archduke commanded them to send her away as soon as she woke up. Anne whispers to the clueless mermaid that this must be the woman Kieran had invited over the previous night. Melusine recognizes the phrase, "spent the night." A memory flashes back of her sisters on a moonlit rock, explaining that this was the act a mermaid performed with her fated mate to have a child. Back in the chaotic hallway, the furious woman confirms the rumors, shouting that His Grace always sends his female guests home the morning after. Without fail, Anne, embarrassed by the scene, tries to lead Melusine away. But the mermaid stops, looking back at the defeated woman with pity and declaring what a shame it all is. Melusine watches the woman leave, a curious look on her face. She admits to herself that she actually wanted to ask her a question: what was it really like to spend the night with a Sarenhide? The scene suddenly shifts to a grim, snow-covered battlefield from long ago. A voice barks an order at a young Kieran kill the man before him. But the boy stands frozen, trembling as he holds the weapon. A tall, imposing figure looms behind him, furious at the hesitation. He screams at Kieran, demanding to know what he is waiting for. Tears stream down a young Kieran's face as he pleads that the condemned man is his teacher. The imposing figure behind him, his older brother and king, is completely unfazed. He declares that the man is no longer a teacher, but a traitor who sold information to the enemy. Shaking uncontrollably, Kieran begs His Majesty, insisting there must be a mistake. In response to his defiance, the king delivers a sharp, stinging blow across his face, silencing his protests with cold authority and punishing his weakness on the battlefield. The king's voice cuts through the chaos, questioning when his little brother will finally act like a proper royal. He declares that as emperor, his command is absolute. Young Kieran is given an impossible choice: end his teacher's life or his own. This is the moment he must prove himself. Trembling, Kieran pleads with his teacher, Duncan, begging him to say the accusations aren't true. Through his tears, he can't accept that the man who taught him for years could betray the empire so easily. With tears in his eyes, Kieran begs his teacher to just deny the charges, promising he'll do anything to save him. But the wounded man on the ground simply looks up, addressing him as, "Your Highness." He calmly tells Kieran to listen to the Emperor's orders and not resist, stating that a wrongdoer must accept his punishment. The memory flashes back to a gentle lesson from the past, where this same teacher taught him that a sword is a ruler's tool to protect his subjects, not to cause them harm. A memory from a happier time flashes through Kieran's mind. His teacher's gentle voice explains that a blade is meant to protect people. But that lesson shatters against the harsh reality. With his final breath, the condemned man urges the young prince to survive. Forced to obey his brother's cruel command, Kieran carries out the terrible act. He jolts awake in the present, gasping and covered in a cold sweat. This single, horrifying nightmare is the source of the insomnia that has plagued him for years. Still reeling from his dark past, Kieran is jolted by a frantic voice calling for Miss Mermaid. He looks out the window to see a surprising scene. Melisande is running barefoot through the beautiful gardens, laughing with pure, unfiltered joy. Behind her, a flustered maid named Anne chases after her, holding a pair of shoes and pleading for her to stop. Kieran watches the entire exchange in silence. The sight of her infectious happiness seems cut through the heavy darkness of his memories, leaving him momentarily stunned. Night falls, but for Kieran, there is no peace. Another bottle of sleeping medicine slips from his hand, shattering on the floor. He collapses onto the couch, head buried in his hands, utterly defeated. He knows it's no use. No matter what he does or what medicine he takes, sleep will never come. The horrifying memory of his teacher's last moments flashes through his mind. The injured man's desperate hand crawling forward to grab his leg. The nightmare is relentless, a prison from which Kieran can find no escape. Lost in his personal hell, Kieran questions if he will always be trapped in this torment. Suddenly, a cheerful giggle slices through the suffocating silence. The sound pulls him from his dark thoughts, and a rare, surprised laugh escapes his own lips. He's drawn to the window, watching Melusan's unfiltered joy in the garden. But ancient lore offers a warning: one should never be fooled by a mermaid's beauty. Their enchanting voices are said to be powerful enough to steal a person's very soul, and Kieran is listening intently. As Melusan's laughter echoes in his memory, Kieran scoffs at the legend. Steal his soul. Given his endless torment, he mutters that such a fate might be preferable. Just then, his aide Ein rushes into the room, completely shocked by the mess of broken glass and Kieran's disheveled state. Panting, he asks what happened, but the Archduke cuts him off. Looking up with a new, desperate resolve, Kieran orders Anne to bring him the mermaid. He needs her now. Following Kieran's command, a knight escorts Melusan through the cold castle halls. Her hands are bound, and she trembles with every step on the unfamiliar ground. Suddenly, she loses her footing and cries out, stumbling forward. The guard quickly steadies her, asking what the matter is. Face completely flushed, Melusan begs him to wait just a moment. Confused, the knight glances down to see the problem, only for his own face to turn bright red. Her fancy dress is clearly not designed for walking, leaving him utterly flustered by the unexpected view. The flustered knight insists they can't wait. The Archduke wants her brought to him now. Completely naive, Melusan wonders take him to him even means. She's led to a grand doorway where a maid gives her the final, chilling instructions: enter alone and find Kieran's bedchamber. The realization finally dawns on her. As she nervously steps into the massive room, Kieran, with his back turned, coolly states that she took long enough, making it clear he's been waiting impatiently. Kieran is already waiting, sprawled on a lounge with his shirt unbuttoned. As Melusan enters, she nervously calls out his name, quickly correcting herself. Unimpressed, Kieran eyes her from across the room and asks if she's been practicing her walking. Proudly, she insists that she's walked a great deal. Kieran simply pats the seat beside him, a clear and silent order. He then challenges her to prove it, commanding her to walk over to him. Melusan immediately freezes, caught in the intensity of his golden gaze. Gathering her courage, Melusan takes a shaky step forward. Her legs immediately give way, and she stumbles with a small yelp, barely catching her balance. From his seat, Kieran watches with cold amusement, asking what she's doing. Without waiting for an answer, he simply commands her to keep going. Humiliated but determined, Melusan wobbles onward, fighting to stay upright as she makes the long, difficult journey across the room. Every single step is a teetering struggle, making the distance feel like miles under his intense golden gaze. Without another word, Kieran pulls Melusan down, pinning her beneath him on the lounge. But instead of doing what she expects, he simply grabs her ankle. He casually asks how much walking she did to make her feet so warm, leaving her utterly bewildered. He gives her leg a firm squeeze, testing her, and asks if it's too much. Flustered and blushing, Melusan stammers that she's fine, her heart pounding in her chest. Satisfied with her answer, Kieran simply says, making it perfectly clear who is in control. Archduke Kieran looms over Melusan, his golden eyes filled with an undeniable intensity. With a smirk, he gives her a simple command: sing for him. Startled, the mermaid can only stare as his thumb gently traces her lip. He closes the distance between them until their faces are inches apart, making his possessive demand perfectly clear. She is to sing for him, right here and right now. This isn't a simple request for a song, it's Charon staking his claim on her and the magic she holds, wanting it all for himself. Charon sits alone on a grassy dune, staring out at the ocean as the sun sets. His butler, Hethnal, approaches cautiously, noting that the Archduke has been watching the waves all day. He gently asks what's on his mind. After a long, quiet moment, Charon finally answers, stating that he was just thinking about how beautiful the view is. But then his possessive nature reveals itself. He declares that the ocean is so beautiful, he wants to make it his. Back in the castle, Maluzin thinks the very same thing while floating in her bath. Lying in her bed, Maluzin quietly wishes for something, just once. Her thought is interrupted when Kieran's hand brushes her cheek. He leans over her, impatiently demanding that she sing for him. Confused, Maluzin stammers that she doesn't even know the word. Sing. Kieran gives her cheek a firm squeeze, asking if she's truly that ignorant, or if her people hid it from her, fearing her voice was a curse to humans. Elsewhere, a maid considers the hollow promity that surround the powerful. Kieran realizes humans can't hide their true feelings. He knows they see Maluzin as a monster, something that will undoubtedly harm them. He scoffs, saying it's no wonder people like that would lock her away in a tank. Suddenly, he leans in and speaks a word in a different language, asking if she understands. Maluzin jolts, completely stunned. Kieran just spoke her native language. The Archduke smirks, confirming to himself that mermaids do, in fact, speak the ancient tongue. Maluzin's face brightens with understanding. She excitedly asks if the word he spoke means lullaby. Kieran confirms that's exactly what he wants right here and now. Without another word, he pulls her onto the bed, flopping down beside her with an expectant look. He leans in close, propping his head on his hand and asking what she's waiting for. With a gentle touch to her cheek, he urges her to begin. Hesitantly, a soft, magical melody escapes her lips, finally filling the silent room. As Maluzin's voice fills the room, Kieran realizes this is no simple song. It feels more like an ancient, powerful chant. The melody plunges him deep into a memory, a vision of himself standing against the churning waves of a stormy sea. Her voice is the kind that brings old feelings rushing back. He remembers someone asking him what he was thinking about back then. His answer was simple and absolute. He had been watching the ocean because he wanted to possess it completely. The vision sends Kieran plunging into a dark, cold sea. He's sinking, and a dark truth comes to light. He didn't just want to possess the ocean, he wanted it to swallow him whole. He craved the final piece of sinking beneath the waves. But just as the darkness closes in, a brilliant light appears. It's Maluzin, holding him gently in the clear water. As bubbles escape his lips, Kieran's eyes open with a profound realization. He finally understands. This is why he brought her all the way here. Kieran's dark thoughts finally surface. He admits to himself that he always called the siren legends foolish tales, but secretly hoped they were true. He actually wanted her to end his suffering. Before a confused Maluzin can ask what he means, he suddenly pulls her forward, silencing her song completely. She gasps, completely shocked by his sudden advance. His golden eyes are sharp and demanding as he pulls back just enough to speak. He coldly states that he never gave her permission to stop, ordering her to continue the lullaby. Overwhelmed by her song, Kieran has an intense urge to consume the melody entirely. Without warning, he leans in and cuts her song short with a sudden, silencing kiss. Maluzin is left completely stunned, her music replaced by a shocked silence. The scene fades and reopens as bright morning light streams into the grand bedroom. For the first time in ages, Kieran is sleeping soundly. Maluzin slowly sits up beside him, utterly confused by the night's events and the peaceful man resting in her bed. Maluzin jolts awake, finding Kieran sleeping peacefully beside her for the first time. As the memory of the previous night rushes back, her heart begins to pound in her chest. She wonders if this overwhelming feeling is what it's like to be with her fated mate, her Sarenhide. Drawn to the rare sight of him at peace, she reaches out to gently touch his face, but his eyes snap open instantly. Before she can pull back, he seizes her wrist and yanks her forward, catching her completely off guard. Kieran's calm demeanor shatters as he suddenly pins Maluzin to the bed. Panic flares in her eyes as she struggles against his iron grip, barely able to gasp out a plea for him to let her go. But Kieran doesn't respond. He simply stares down at her, his expression cold and unreadable. He holds her completely still, making it clear that she is at his mercy and he is the one in charge. Kieran's control shatters as he suddenly seizes Maluzin, his grip overwhelming her completely. She chokes out that it's too much and that it hurts, frantically trying to break free. Her panicked pleas for him to let her go finally seem to break through his haze, and he flinches back, releasing his hold. Maluzin collapses, gasping for air. As he stands and stares into the morning light, Kieran comes to a stunning realization. The sun is up, And for the first time in forever, he had a night free of nightmares. Still processing his first peaceful night in years, Kieran leans over the dazed mermaid. He asks her a strange question. If this is how she plans to steal his soul. Before she can figure out what he's talking about, he declares that he now understands her value. He has finally made up his mind about her. With a look of absolute ownership, he informed her that from this day forward, her name is Melusine. He has officially claimed her as his own, sealing her fate within the walls of his castle. The next morning, a frantic maid named Anne rushes to Melusine's side, followed by the other servants. They immediately swarm her, anxiously asking if she's alright after spending the night with the fearsome Archduke. One maid notices the large bow on Melusine's dress is still perfectly tied. Seeing this, Anne pulls her aside and hesitantly asks if anything happened between her and Kieran. But the innocent mermaid is completely clueless, having no idea what the worried maid is even hinting at. As Anne tries to explain, Melusine suddenly gets an idea. To show what happened, she leans in and gives the startled maid a quick kiss on the cheek. Anne is absolutely floored, her face turning beet red as she stammers that Melusine mustn't do that. But the mermaid just nods happily, confirming that's exactly what she did with Kieran the night before. When a horrified Anne asks if she really kissed the Archduke, Melusine tilts her head, completely clueless about what a kiss even is. Realizing her total innocence, and begins to explain the human custom. Anne explains that a kiss is something very important and special, an act reserved only for someone you truly like. This new information sends Melusine's mind reeling as she flashes back to the night before. She remembers Kieran's intense gaze as he gently touched her cheek. A huge realization hits her. If what Anne says is true, does this mean Kieran considers her his mate? She wonders if that's the real reason he gave her a name, seeing his act of ownership in a completely new, heart-fluttering light. Melusine's mind flashes back to that night, replaying the moment Kieran leaned in close. His voice was a soft whisper as he called her by her new name. Snapping back to the present, her heart hammers against her ribs as she touches her lips. When a confused Anne asks what's going on, Melusine can't contain her excitement. With a massive grin, she explains that her name is Melusine. A wave of pure joy washes over her as she finally accepts her new identity, proudly declaring to the room that she is Melusine. Melusine is overcome with joy, proudly thinking to herself that she is finally a Sarenhide. Elsewhere, Kieran's aide, Ian, looks at his master in utter shock, barely able to ask if the Archduke really slept. Kieran, looking completely refreshed, calmly flips through a document and confirms that he did, and it was a deep sleep too. Still reeling, Ian stammers and asks how it was even possible. Kieran looks away thoughtfully, admitting that he isn't entirely sure himself, leaving Ian absolutely dumbfounded by this unprecedented miracle. Anne's mind races. He recalls that for the past 5 years, ever since the late Emperor's death, the Archduke hasn't slept properly, even with medicine. He connects the dots and wonders aloud if the mermaid was the miracle cure. As Ian begins to ask if Kieran will see her again tonight, Kieran cuts him off with a sharp look. He reminds his aide that he came to deliver a report, not to gossip. A flustered Ian quickly presents the documents. The news is serious. Marquis Hethnal has doubled his army, and is poised to triple it soon. Ian lays out the grim details. Marquis Hethnal has been busy, getting nearly every noble in the capital on his side. Kieran reads the report, coolly remarking that things are worse than he thought. Ian agrees and offers to send investigators, but Kieran waves him off. Unconcerned, he crosses his legs and says he'll see Hethnal in 2 months anyway. For now, Ian just needs to keep an eye on him. Ian agrees, clearly a bit puzzled by his master's confident, laid-back approach to the growing threat. As a servant adjusts his clothes, Kieran calls N by his full name, getting his immediate attention. Ian cautiously asks if the Archduke is truly alright with the current political situation. When Kieran plays dumb, Ian insists that his master knows exactly what he's talking about. Settling onto the sofa with a calm expression, Kieran looks at his loyal aide. He flips the script completely, asking if Ian is certain he's ready. Ready for what? Ready to become a traitor, right alongside him. This shocking proposal hangs heavy in the air. Kieran tells there's no need to join him in this rebellion, not wanting Anne to face the consequences. Ian insists he's just being prudent, but Kieran reminds him he's a vice commander, not a sworn vassal obligated to follow him. Ian flatly rejects this. He declares that the Archduke's will is his own, and he'll stand by him until the very end. A smirk plays on Kieran's lips, amused by this total devotion. He calls it a lovely sentiment and dismisses his loyal aide, who leaves with a respectful bow. As the aide leaves, he offers to summon the mermaid to help the Archduke sleep. The mere mention of her name makes Kieran's hand twitch. Alone now, his thoughts drift to Melusine, his little fish, with a very useful talent. He calmly lights a cigar, the match hissing as it ignites. Leaning back against the sofa, Kieran blows out a cloud of smoke. He morbidly wonders how many more times he'll have to hear her song before he can finally sleep forever. A knock at the door announces a summons from the Archduke. Maluzin is to see him immediately. Her maid Anne is absolutely thrilled, exclaiming that she knew he would call again. While Maluzin seems hesitant, Anne is proud of the beautiful dress she put her in, convinced His Grace will be very pleased. The word, pleased, confuses the innocent mermaid. As a guard leads her away, the cheerful maid hops on the spot, wishing her well on her way to Kieran's chambers. The guard gently leads Maluzin, telling her to be careful. She's surprised by how much kinder he is now. Back in her room, Anne the maid is putting it all together. After several nights, Kieran hasn't discarded the mermaid, which has never happened before. Anne is absolutely certain. The Archduke has developed a fondness for her. When Maluzin arrives, the door creeps into a pitch-black room. Confused, she steps inside, unable to see a thing as she looks around for Kieran in the darkness. Out of the darkness, an arm snakes around Maluzin's waist, pulling her back against a hard chest. Kieran's voice is low as he says her name. He rests his head against her shoulder and sighs, telling her she's late before questioning the unnecessary layers of her dress. Startled, Maluzin gasps when his hands press down on her tight corset. Seeing her discomfort, Kieran coolly offers to help her with it. In the next moment, a sharp tug breaks the pearl necklace she's wearing, scattering beads across the floor. He pulls her in, his nose brushing against her neck. The Archduke isn't happy, stating this isn't her natural scent and questioning what the maid put on her. Whispering her name, he asks if they should get rid of the clothes. But Maluzin is completely clueless. She asks what take off means and how you even do it. As his hand moves further down her dress, the flustered mermaid can only stammer that she doesn't know how, leaving him to take complete control of the situation. Kieran scoffs at her helplessness, coldly stating he isn't raising a needy animal. With a single, decisive tug, he pulls the complicated dress right off her. It collapses in a heap on the floor, leaving Maluzin in a simple white garment. The Archduke expects her to be shy, but her reaction is the exact opposite. Her eyes sparkle with pure joy as she realizes how comfortable she is. The mermaid thanks him enthusiastically, leaving Kieran stunned and amused by how easily she was pleased. Kieran finds her simple joy amusing, deciding that if she's truly grateful, it's her turn to perform. In one swift motion, he scoops the startled mermaid into his arms. He carries her across the room and gently places her onto the bed. Leaning over her, his golden eyes are fixed on hers as he makes his demand. He tells Maluzin to sing the lullaby for him. Stunned by their sudden closeness, she is left speechless for a moment before her magical song begins to fill the grand chamber, just as he commanded. As morning sunlight fills the grand bedroom, Maluzin awakens of Kieran sleeping peacefully beside her. She happily reflects on how much she enjoys being with him, though she's a little disappointed he hasn't kissed her again. Gently brushing the hair from his forehead, her heart begins to race. In her innocent mermaid mind, spending the night together means only one thing. She concludes that she must be having a baby soon and eagerly hopes to meet their little mermaid daughter, who she's sure will look just like him. Lost in her innocent daydreams, Maluzin gazes at the sleeping Archduke. Convinced he is the most beautiful man alive, she simply can't help herself. She leans down and gives him a gentle kiss, but this wakes him instantly. Kieran's golden eyes snap open, catching her completely off guard. Mortified, Maluzin gasps, but before she can pull away, he grabs her wrist. With a sly grin, Kieran comments that he never knew she could be so forward, leaving her blushing and trapped in his grasp. As Maluzin tries to hide her bright red face, Kieran gently pulls her hand away, ordering her not to cover it. Before she can process his words, he leans in and captures her lips in a deep kiss. The Archduke isn't playing around. In one fluid motion, he scoops her up and lays her down, completely taking control. The sudden, intense affection leaves the mermaid totally breathless. Overwhelmed by the unexpected passion, Maluzin is left coughing and flustered as he continues to hold her close, clearly enjoying her reaction. Kieran playfully scolds the flustered mermaid, telling her she needs to remember to breathe. He smirks, teasing that her inexperience is the only thing holding them back. Deciding to take charge, he declares he will teach her properly. He leans in close, and whatever lesson he gives, it clearly deepens their connection. Later, Maluzin explores the sunlit garden, enjoying her new freedom. Her peaceful moment is shattered when a voice suddenly calls out for Miss Mermaid, making her whip around in surprise. The voice belongs to Anne, the maid, who chases after Maluzin with her shoes. The mermaid playfully refuses, shouting that they're too tight before disappearing into the bushes. Finally free, Maluzin marvels at the vibrant garden, feeling the soft grass beneath her bare feet. She remembers Anne teaching her the names of some flowers, like freesias. Her attention is then stolen by a beautiful blue butterfly resting on a bloom. As she wondered it is, the butterfly flutters away, revealing a serious-looking man standing near the gate, watching her intently. The serious-looking man turns out to be Kieran himself. He calmly observes that she's out in the garden today. Maluzin, completely mesmerized by the butterfly on her hand, stammers in confusion. Having never seen one, she points and calls it a moving flower, demanding to know its name. The creature flutters from her hand to Kieran's. He gently corrects her, explaining it's a butterfly. He even adds that in her own language, it's called a seiki. As it flies away, Maluzin repeats the word, totally captivated. As Maluzin watches the butterfly disappear, she looks up at the Archduke in a daze. A soft breeze blows through her pink hair as she quietly mumbles his name for the first time. Gaining a bit of confidence, she says it again, Kieran. The Archduke smirks, acknowledging that she's finally learned his name. But instead of praise, he reaches down and gives her a light flick on the forehead. He then cheekily informs her that her pronunciation is all wrong and she needs to keep practicing. This guy just can't resist teasing her. Maluzin pouts, grumbling about having to practice his name. But Kieran is already turning to leave, telling her not to stay out too long and that he'll call her maid. Seeing his back, Maluzin panics. She shoots up and yells that she wants to go with him. Kieran stops in his tracks. He looks back and, to her shock, simply tells her to do as she wishes. Her face completely lights up with pure joy. She eagerly agrees and bolts after him, running right past a bewildered Anne, who had just arrived. Maluzin excitedly follows Kieran right to the training grounds, where the sharp ring of steel fills the air. A frantic Anne finally catches up and grabs her arm, trying to pull her away. She scolds Maluzin, warning her that the area is dangerous and they could easily get kicked out for trespassing. But her panicked words are completely lost on the mermaid. With a soft gasp, Maluzin stares at the knight sparring, her eyes wide with pure fascination. She's never seen anything like the powerful, chaotic dance of human combat before. Maluzin spots a commanding figure on a massive black horse and excitedly points him to Anne. Watching Kieran with awe, Anne agrees that he is amazing. She proudly shares that her father, a former soldier, always said Kieran was the only commander who trained alongside his men every single time. As if on cue, Kieran calls the session to a halt. The moment he turns to leave, Maluzin panics. She bolts after him, leaving a shocked Anne yelling that she can't just follow the Archduke around all day. Maluzin continues to follow Kieran, with a panicked Anne scrambling to keep up. They arrive at a massive dining hall, where Anne yanks her behind the doors, just out of sight. Peeking through the crack, Anne whispers that they can't go in. Kieran is in the middle of an important meal with a count, and they will be in huge trouble if they interrupt. But all her warnings are completely lost on Maluzin. The mermaid's eyes go wide, completely ignoring the two men as she stares at the incredible feast, exclaiming with delight, "Food!" The massive doors creak open, and a nervous aide peeks inside, spotting them immediately. Anne completely loses it, bowing low and begging for forgiveness. She promises to drag Maluzin away, pleading with them not to punish her. But the aide stops her, looking totally flustered. He stammers that his grace said to stop hovering by the door and just come inside. At the invitation, Maluzin's face lights up with a massive grin, while poor Anne is frozen in shock. Inside, Kieran calmly sips his wine, looking completely unbothered by the commotion. At the dinner table, Kieran and his aide Ian talk politics. Ian questions the Emperor's latest spending, and Kieran reveals he just blew 60 million on a worthless diamond mine. Ian can't believe it, but Kieran knows exactly who's to blame: Marcus Hethnal. He dismisses the Marquess as a desperate old man trying to bankrupt the kingdom. As they speak, a jarring screech rips through the air. Maluzin is furiously scraping her fork against her plate, tearing into a cooked fish with a wild intensity, completely oblivious to their conversation. Ian tries to get the meeting back on track, but their political talk is constantly drowned out by a horrible screeching sound. He reports that the nobles are unhappy with the palace's recent decisions, but Kieran just scoffs. He coolly remarks that the new emperor is simply enjoying his freedom now that he's out from under his father's watch. The grating noise from Maluzin's utensil gets louder and more frantic until her plate suddenly shatters. Kieran doesn't even flinch. He simply turns and calmly tells her it's a shame she can't properly enjoy the dinner he invited her to. Kieran calls out Maluzin's name, breaking the tense silence after her outburst. He explains that he simply had the maids bring her what she usually eats. In front of her is a raw fish swimming in a bowl of water. When he asks if she doesn't want it, Maluzin shakes her head frantically. Looking him straight in the eye, she asks what this is, casually calling him by his first name. Ian chokes on his drink, stunned by her disrespect. But Kieran just smirks, telling his aide to focus on what she said, not how she said it. Kieran isn't fazed by her informal tone. He coolly tells her she needs more practice with human customs and can eat however she wants if the fork is too difficult. That's all the permission Maluzin needs. Her face lights up as she grabs the raw fish with both hands. While Ian and the staff watch in pure horror, she takes a massive, crunchy bite. Kieran, however, just leans back, completely amused. He asks if it's good, and Maluzin beams, declaring it's delicious before happily thanking him by name once more. Ian stammers, completely at a loss for words, but Kieran pays his freaked-out aide no mind. He gently wipes Maluzin's mouth with his thumb, a smug little smile on his face. He calmly repeats his question. wanting to know how many noble houses have joined their side. Ian is completely floored, wondering what on earth he's witnessing. Later, Maluzin looks out over the bustling training grounds below. Peering out the window, she asks if a certain "shh" was brought to the castle as well, before immediately adding a curious "ooh." At the training grounds, Ian notes that the mermaid seems to be following Kieran everywhere lately. Unbothered, Kieran just tells him to let her be. He finds it amusing to watch her peek from behind a gate, thinking she's being stealthy. Kieran coldly compares the situation to watching a beast become domesticated. When Ian asks if he's ever tamed animals before, the scene flashes back 10 years. A younger Kieran stands still as a small fox affectionately nuzzles his leg, clearly having taken a liking to the young highness. The flashback continues as an attendant points out how special it is for a wild fox to be so attached to a human. A young Kieran, holding the creature, tries to act tough and calls it irritating. But the man just laughs, totally calling his bluff. He knows Kieran lets the little fox sleep in his room every night and suggests he give it a name. Suddenly, the memory darkens. A panicked Kieran slams his door shut, desperately hiding the fox under his bed. He pleads with it to stay put, explaining Mother is arriving for a hunt. The memory cuts to a panicked young Kieran urgently warning his fox. He explains that if his brother catches sight of the little creature, something terrible will happen. The fox trembles as Kieran desperately pleads with it to stay hidden for the day, but his efforts are in vain. The scene shifts to the misty woods, where a stoic Kieran stood over the small, still body of his friend. A serious injury is visible on its side. Back in the present, Kieran's face is cold as he finishes his thought, admitting that yes, he did tame one once. Kieran continues his chilling lesson for Ian. He explains that when you capture a beast, the first thing you must do is build it a sturdy cage. The goal is to lock it up and make it understand that it can never escape. As he thinks this, Maluzin peeks out from a gate with an innocent smile, happy just to see him. Kieran's philosophy becomes even darker, concluding that this must be done even if the process ends up being fatal. Later that night, he takes a mesmerized Maluzin on a walk through a breathtaking, rocky landscape. Maluzin's eyes go wide with pure joy. Kieran has brought her to the ocean. He sees how happy she is and tells her to go on and get a closer look. She eagerly asks if he's coming with her, but he just stands back, saying he'll wait right there with a small smile. Hesitantly, Melusine approaches the shoreline, explaining she needs to check something. As the waves wash over her feet, a look of confusion crosses her face. From a distance, Kieran just watches, observing his prize near its natural habitat. The flashback continues, revealing a Kieran finding his pet fox collapsed in the woods, gravely injured. Distraught, he desperately asks the creature why it didn't stay hidden as he had begged it to. Just then, the thundering sound of galloping horses echoes nearby, with men shouting that their target went this way. A wave of pure terror hits Kieran. He knows his brother is about to find them, and when he does, he'll end the little fox's life in the most horrible way imaginable. The flashback concludes with a devastating moment. As his cruel brother gets closer, a tearful young Kieran looks at his injured fox and comes to a dark realization. He believes it would be better to end things himself. Back in the present, Maluzin wades into the ocean as the cool waves splash her ankles. Ian panics, shouting that she's going in, but Kieran stops him with a hand. The Archduke's voice is ice cold as he tells Ian to let her be. This is all a tracid test to see if she will try to escape. As Maluzin goes deeper, her legs shimmer and transform back into her beautiful mermaid tail. She floats on the surface, sighing in pure bliss, feeling completely at home after so long. On the shore, Ian totally panics, yelling to Kieran that the seawater has brought her tail back. Kieran watches with an icy glare, simply saying her name. Maluzin glances back, wondering if a quick dive would be okay. The second she hesitates, Kieran's cool facade shatters. He roars her name, demanding she come back immediately. But Maluzin just smiles. Maluzin laughs happily, telling herself to just enjoy it for a moment. After all, Kieran was the one who said she could get in the water. Ignoring his frantic shouts, she playfully dives beneath the waves with a huge splash. Back on the shore, can only stare in shock, whispering that she's gone. Kieran's control shatters completely. His face contorts with absolute fury as he snarls her name, enraged by her defiance. Without a second thought, the Archduke charges into the ocean after her, leaving a stunned Ian calling his name. A painful memory floods Kieran's mind, explaining everything. Years ago, someone advised the young prince to name his beloved pet fox to ensure he wouldn't lose it. But that idyllic moment was a lie. He now believes that a name is useless for keeping something safe. With bitter regret, he thinks a leash would have been the only true way to protect his companion. From that tragedy, he learned a cold, hard lesson. If you don't physically tie down what is yours, someone else will always be there to take it away. The flashback reveals its tragic end. Young Kieran, shattered by his loss, concluded it would be better to end his own suffering. With tears of pure despair streaming down his face, he held a dagger, ready to make an irreversible choice born from grief. Back in the present, Maluzin surfaces, confused to find her legs have returned. Before she can react, Kieran is on her. He grabs her arm with an iron grip, yanking her close. He silences her with a sudden, desperate kiss. An act not of love, but of furious possessive claim. The kiss breaks, but the danger only ramps up. In a shocking move, Kieran pulls out a dagger and holds the cold blade to her throat. He yanks her by the hair, his eyes burning with fury. He demands to know if she missed the ocean enough to leave him behind. Terrified, Maluzin insists she was only swimming and never planned to run away. But Kieran's past trauma has taken over completely. With a chilling expression, he asks how he could possibly trust a single word she says now. Kieran's grip loosens, but his words are colder than any blade. He calls her a beast he shouldn't have freed without a leash, blaming himself for letting her gentle nature make him soft. Maluzin is completely lost, sensing this isn't the man she knows. He spins her around to face the beautiful, moonlit water. With a terrifying calm, he tells her to take a good long look, because she will never see an ocean again. Before she can even ask why, he starts dragging her away from the shore. Just as things escalate, Ian sprints onto the beach, calling out to Kieran. But the Archduke is in no mood for company. Still gripping Maluzin's wrist, he coldly orders everyone to return to the castle. Without him, he informs Ian he'll be staying at the guard post for the night, making his intentions clear. Maluzin's pleas are ignored as Kieran drags her away from the shore. Back inside the mansion, he shoves her into a bedroom, her cry of shock echoing as he makes it clear she is his prisoner now. Kieran throws Maluzin onto the bed without a word. As she lands with a soft thud, she whispers that he's hurting her. But Kieran is already unbuttoning his cuffs, his cold, golden eyes never leaving her. The bed groans as he leans over, trapping her beneath his gaze. Maluzin's heart pounds in terror as he pulls her firmly into his grasp. He wordlessly asserts his complete control, leaving her with the terrifying realization that she is now truly his prisoner, with absolutely no chance of escape. Kieran looms over Maluzin on the bed, his voice dangerously calm as he wonders what to do with her. He dismisses physical restraints like a collar, saying she'd just remove it. Touching her face, he makes her flinch. He reminds her of her name, the one he gave her. This, in his mind, means she belongs to him. He commands her to do as he says, pressing a thumb to her lips to silence any protest. He demands that she say the words that she will obey him completely. Kieran leans in, demanding she repeat his words of absolute submission. That she is his and will obey him completely. Trapped and terrified, Maluzin can only whisper her surrender, tears forming in her eyes as she confirms that she belongs to him. A cold smirk flashes across his face. He got what he wanted. Without warning, he yanks her forward, his actions silencing her completely. As he pulls back, his final words are a chilling promise she is never to disobey him again. His control is now absolute. Without warning, Kieran pushes Maluzin back, his intense actions silencing her completely. She struggles to breathe, overwhelmed by his sudden move. He then whispers a shocking demand, making his intentions brutally clear. As his hand moves, crossing a terrifying new boundary, Maluzin cries out his name in a desperate plea for him to stop. But her protests are ignored. Kieran is simply proving his point. Her body, like her will, now belongs entirely to him. His control is absolute, and her terror is just part of his victory. Kieran tells her to relax, but his touch sends a strange jolt through her entire body. She cries out, an involuntary reaction to the overwhelming sensation, clutching his shirt in a tight grip. Pulling back, Kieran looks completely satisfied with her response, coolly praising her for being so good. Left trembling and catching her breath, Maluzin is utterly confused by what just happened. A fleeting memory of a tender moment surfaces. A painful reminder of the fated mate she once believed in, now replaced by this cold-hearted monster who has claimed her completely. As Maluzin's heart pounds, she desperately tries to understand his actions. In her innocence, she wonders if this is a necessary step for them to have a baby. But her thoughts are cut short when Kieran lifts her up again. She asks if he's joking, but his reply is cold and clear. The night is still young. He holds her against the moonlit window, his control absolute. Later, a pained cry echoes from the room, proving his twisted lesson in obedience was far from over, and her ordeal was just beginning. Kieran calmly tells Maluzin not to bite her tongue, demanding she face whatever he does next. As his cruel lesson in obedience continues, she's hit by a wave of intense, confusing sensations she's never experienced. It's a baffling mix of discomfort and something powerfully new. Overwhelmed and unable to hold back, she lets out involuntary cries. The feeling becomes so strong that her body reacts on its own, and she bites down hard, completely lost in the strange and terrifying moment Kieran has created just for her. Kieran is in annoyance, telling Maluzin he already told her to relax. As their intense night continues, she's flooded with sensations she's never experienced before. It's a completely baffling and awkward feeling, but surprisingly, part of her likes it. Wanting to see his expression, she reaches out and gently touches his face. Caught off guard by this unexpected gesture, Kieran leans down to kiss her. In that moment, utterly consumed by the confusing emotions he has stirred in her, Maluzin realizes with a jolt that she likes him. Lost in this new, intense connection, Maluzin looks up at Kieran with an expression of pure, dazed affection. For a second, the normally composed Archduke is stunned into silence. He leans down, his voice low as he admits the incredible effect she has on him. He pulls her into a deep embrace, and their world narrows to just the two of them. The scene then fades to the bright morning sun rising over the Perthach castle, signaling that their tumultuous night has ended and a new, complicated day has begun. Maluzin's eyes slowly flutter open, and she's completely out of it. Her maid Anne rushes to her side, filled with relief. Anne reveals the shocking news. Maluzin has been asleep for 2 straight days. Worried, she asks if the mermaid is feeling ill. A flustered Maluzin insists she's fine but looks around the grand room, totally lost. Anne explains that this is her room now. Ignoring everything else, Maluzin sits up abruptly, her only concern being the man who left her this way. She frantically asks where Kieran is. Anne explains that Kieran isn't there, as he's gone out to welcome a guest. Confused, Maluzin wonders who could be visiting. The maid clarifies that the daughter of Marquis Hethnal has come to the estate. Just then, a lavish carriage arrives, and a stunning blonde woman in a vibrant red dress steps out with an air of pure confidence. Before Maluzin can even process the scene, Anne delivers the final, crushing blow. This woman, Esther, isn't just any guest, she's Kieran's betrothed. Totally clueless about human customs, Maluzin asks Anne about marriage, wondering if it's just one man and one woman. Anne confirms it, explaining it's a lifelong vow to a single partner. This new information doesn't line up with what Maluzin thinks she knows about Kieran. Anne clarifies that his actions are different because he isn't married yet. Still confused, Maluzin innocently declares that if the goal is to have babies, having more partners just makes more sense. This shocking statement makes Anne panic, begging the mermaid never to repeat that thought out loud again. While cleaning, Anne casually mentions she'll be heading out for the afternoon. Maluzin, still completely new to the human world, asks why. Anne explains that she has errands in town, a concept the mermaid has never heard of. The maid describes the bustling area outside the castle, which is currently celebrating the massive harvest festival. As she details the lively crowds, colorful balloons, and unique goods, Maluzin's eyes sparkle with pure wonder. Overcome with excitement, she eagerly declares that she wants to go too, but Anne firmly shuts her down. Her orders are to stay put and rest. Maluzin immediately turns on the waterworks, hitting Anne with the full force of her shimmering, tarry-eyed puppy, dog face. She whimpers, begging the maid to explain why she can't go to the festival. Overwhelmed by the cuteness, Anne struggles to hold her ground, muttering that they absolutely shouldn't. But her resolve crumbles completely against the mermaid's plea. Soon after, the two are walking through the bustling town square, surrounded by the lively chaos of the festival. Maluzin, now in human clothes and looking around in wonder, calls out to her maid. Riding in a fancy carriage, the other maids whisper nervously, wondering if taking Maluzin out is even allowed. Anne reassures them, explaining she got permission since Maluzin can't walk very far on her new legs anyway. But the mermaid is completely lost in her own world, face pressed to the window in pure amazement. She points at a chicken, hilariously calling it a creature with red seaweed on its head. Then she spots statues on a roof, calling them fur on the building, before joyfully pointing out a bald man's head of shiny octopus. Finally arriving, a totally exhausted Anne tells Maluzin she's just going to run into a shop for a moment. Leaving the mermaid with a guard, the drained maids bow and plead with him to watch her well. The second they're gone, Maluzin's world explodes with color and noise. She soaks in all the new sights and smells, things she never saw at the castle. A huge smile spreads across her face as she realizes all of this is part of Kieran's world, and she finds it absolutely fascinating. Suddenly, a beautiful, enchanting melody floats through the festival crowd, stopping Maluzin in her tracks. Her happy expression vanishes as she listens intently, a look of pure shock on her face. Could it really be? The guard tries to get her attention, reminding her not to wander off alone. But Maluzin ignores him completely. She spins around and sprints into the crowd, yelling for the singer to wait. A wave of realization hits her. There's no mistaking that sound. It's the voice of a sister mermaid. The guard yells for her to wait, but Maluzin is already gone, diving into the crowded market. She's positive she heard one of her sisters and races to find them. Her frantic search screeches to a halt when she runs into a commotion. A person in dark robes is collapsed on the ground, crying out in agony. The villagers keep their distance, gossiping about the sick old lady and whatever she has. As the figure wails for someone named Sarenhide, a confused Melisande steps forward, trying to ask what's happening. Maluzin approaches the collapsed person, asking if they are hurt. Suddenly, the robed figure jolts up and grabs her, a shocked expression on their weathered face. Confused by the pained cries, Maluzin innocently asks if maybe they're just hungry. The figure nods wildly, confirming they're starving to death and begging their sister for help. Moved by the plea, Maluzin agrees with a kind nod. But before she can do anything, her guard finally catches up, yelling that it's not safe and they must return to the castle immediately. Despite her guard's protests, Maluzin sprints to a fish stall, grabs a raw fish, and pleads with him to buy it for her starving sister. The confused guard barely has time to question this bizarre request. Without waiting, Maluzin snatches the fish, yells a quick "thank you," and dashes back to the robed figure. Suddenly, a fancy carriage barrels towards them, its driver screaming for them to get out of the way. As the crowd panics, Maluzin instinctively shields the stranger, pleading for the carriage to stop because the person needs to eat. The man from the carriage is furious. He stomps over, raising his hand to strike Maluzin for blocking the path. He shouts that she has no idea who she's messing with. But before he can act, a cold, commanding voice cuts through the chaos, ordering him to put his hand down. The driver turns, baffled, only to see Archduke Kiran approaching. Karen's golden eyes are like ice as he steps forward. He repeats his command with a dangerous quietness, making it clear this is not a suggestion. A cold, commanding voice cuts through the chaos, ordering the person grabbing Maluzin to let her go. It's Archduke Kiran. His mere presence is enough to make Maluzin's guard drop to the ground, stammering apologies and begging for mercy. Maluzin, however, lights up with pure joy. Ignoring the tense situation, she sprints directly into Kiran's arms. She hugs him tightly, exclaiming how much she missed him. Karen stands completely still, stunned into silence by her sudden and very public display of affection. Karen lets out a heavy sigh, clearly annoyed by the very public hug. Maluzin looks up at him, confused by his stiff reaction. Suddenly, a new voice calls out to His Grace. A stunning blonde woman, Lady Hethnal, steps out of a luxurious carriage, looking pleased with what she sees. Snapping out of his shock, Kiran immediately pushes Maluzin away from him, creating distance between them. He coldly acknowledges the newcomer as she apologizes for appearing during the chaos, though her smirk suggests she's enjoying the drama. Lady Hethnal gracefully praises Kiran, calling him a gracious hero and congratulating him on a recent victory. But Kiran isn't impressed by the flattery, bluntly pointing out that she arrived a full week earlier than expected. Unfazed, the blonde lady claims she was simply too curious to see Triton Castle for herself. As Maluzin listens in with wide-eyed shock, Lady Hethnal drops a bombshell, smugly announcing that the castle is set to become her new home anyway. Karen's face remains a cold, unreadable mask, offering no explanation. The blonde lady Esther feigns concern, asking Kiran if her sudden arrival was rude. He shuts her down with a simple, not before telling her she can accompany him from there. Playing the part of a graceful guest, Esther calls it a wonderful suggestion and an honor she couldn't possibly refuse. As Kiran takes her hand, she glances over at the stunned Maluzin. With a smug smile, Esther asks Kiran to introduce her to the young lady, putting him directly about while Maluzin watches in silent disbelief. Maluzin flinches, quickly saying an introduction isn't necessary, but Kiran cuts her off with a freezing cold explanation for her behavior, telling the blonde lady that his pet is just being unruly. Playing along, Esther smirks and agrees that prettier pets must be harder to keep. As Kiran and Esther's carriage begins to leave, a desperate Maluzin reaches out to him. Without fully turning around, Kiran calls her name and gives a single, chilling command stay. He leaves her standing alone in the street. Left all alone, Maluzin can't shake the memory of Kiran's strange expression as he abandoned her. Suddenly, a sharp pain throbs in her chest, forcing her to clutch at her heart. Her spiraling thoughts are shattered by a creepy voice muttering from within the crowd. An ominous hooded man whispers that he is coming. Before she can even process the threat, a strong hand violently grabs her from behind, yanking her away from the spot where she stood frozen in heartbreak and confusion. The mysterious figure's grip tightens on Maluzin as he hisses that she absolutely must choose the ocean. Stunned and struggling against his hold, she demands to know what he's talking about. But the man just pulls back his hood, revealing a terrifying, crazed smile. He taunts her, warning that if she keeps hesitating and thinking about it, it will soon be too late. His chilling words hang in the air, leaving her frozen in fear and confusion by this sudden, terrifying threat. Maluzin sulks in her room, completely miserable. Her maid, Anne, tries to cheer her up, but Maluzin can only think about how Kiran hasn't come to see her. Anne explains that the Archduke is just extremely busy and promises he'll visit when he's free. In a burst of desperation, Maluzin asks if she can go into town to find him. Panic, Anne immediately forbids it, pleading with her to just stay put and wait a little longer. Defeated by the command, Maluzin falls silent, her last bit of hope fading away. Trying to lift Maluzin's spirits, Anne suggests a walk in the beautiful rose garden. Reluctantly, Maluzin agrees, but finds no joy among the vibrant flowers. She thinks to herself that Anne was wrong. Being out here is no fun at all. The garden only triggers a painful memory of a time she was here before, looking up at Kiran. Overwhelmed by the bittersweet recollection, she stands alone amongst the roses and sadly whispers his name, the longing in her voice clear as day. The beautiful scenery only makes his absence feel even more intense. Lost in her thoughts, Malizan almost walks right into a noble lady and asks her to clear the way. She's immediately jolted from her daze when the woman snaps back with a rude remark. It's a stunning blonde lady, Esther, who looks Maluzan up and down with disdain before noting her familiar face. A smug, knowing smile plays on Esther's lips as she leans in, holding a fan to her chin. She confidently asks Maluzan if she remembers her, making it clear this tense reunion is just getting started. The blonde noble, Esther, approaches Maluzan with a practiced smile, telling her it's nice to see her again. She plays dumb for a moment, pretending she can't quite recall Maluzan's name before suddenly remembering it. Complimenting the unique name, Esther gives a sly look and invites her for a walk. She mentions they couldn't get properly acquainted during that incident last time. Their shadows stretch across the path as they begin to walk, the sound of their heels clicking on the stone ground, setting a tense mood. With a sly smile, Esther starts her interrogation, asking which noble family Maluzan belongs to. The fancy words go right over Maluzan's head, leaving her flustered and confused. She realizes Esther is asking where she's from and, trying to be honest, says she's from Bersuz. When Maluzan clarifies that Bersuz is the ocean, Esther's demeanor instantly changes. Her eyes narrow as she recalls that the Bersuz Ocean is famous for one thing: the barren islands where mermaids are said to live. The trap has been sprung. With a smug smile, Esther asks if Maluzan is really claiming to be a mermaid of legend. Completely missing the sarcasm, Maluzan beams and proudly confirms that she is. An older woman with Esther immediately yells that it's nonsense, but the blonde noble just waves her off, claiming it's all in good fun. Confused, Maluzan shuffles her bare, sandy feet on the stone path. Seeing this, Esther mutters under her breath that she finally understands why Kieran calls her a pet. She looks up, her face a mask of false relief. Esther snaps her fan shut, her smile dripping with condescension. She notes that since Kieran doesn't keep animals, a mermaid is an understandable exception. Lightly tapping Maluzan's shoulder with her fan, Esther compares her to a valuable keepsake. She then reveals her full identity: Esther Hethnal, daughter of a marquis and the Archduke's betrothed. This bombshell lands hard. Esther coldly demands that from now on, Maluzan must address her by her official title, leaving the mermaid stunned and utterly lost. The word betrothed echoes in Maluzan's mind. Not understanding the social rules, she innocently asks if this means Esther has also spent the night with Kieran. Esther's polite facade shatters. Her eyes turn to ice as she warns Maluzan that her boldness is losing its charm. Another noblewoman jumps in, defending the Archduke's private affairs. Before Maluzan can process the scolding, Esther strikes her hard across the chest with her fan. The sharp sound cuts through the air, a physical punctuation to her earlier threat, leaving the mermaid stunned. Esther looms over Maluzan, her voice dripping with poison. She asks if being with the Archduke a few times changes her status, then cruelly questions if Maluzan is already pregnant. While an attendant tries to intervene, Maluzan's eyes light up at the thought of a child. She innocently replies that it hasn't happened yet, but she hopes it will soon. Esther scoffs at the mermaid's naive wish, calling her pitiful. Her smile vanishes as she delivers a chilling ultimatum: if Maluzan ever bears care, she will die. Esther's lecture continues, her tone dripping with superiority. She explains that she tolerates Maluzan's presence because nobles often have side companions. However, there is one unbreakable rule: those women never have children. An heir born outside the official line is a source of immense shame. Esther then mocks the very idea of Kieran wanting a child with the mermaid, cruelly referencing his own painful past. Pressing her fan sharply into Maluzan's side, she delivers her final verdict: the mermaid is of no use to him whatsoever. Esther leans in close, her voice a venomous whisper. She delivers her final, crushing blow, warning Maluzan that if she ever had Kieran's child, the Archduke himself would personally end both of their lives. With that horrifying image planted, Esther smugly tells the mermaid to keep fantasizing and turns to leave. Maluzan is left completely stunned and speechless. Later that night, the mood is heavy. Kieran sits with a drink and calmly tells Maluzan that he heard she ran into Esther in town, making it clear this conversation isn't over. Marquis Hethnal arrives, putting on a friendly act. He chuckles, mentioning he wondered why Esther left in such a hurry, and asks Kieran to forgive her excitement. Kieran, unimpressed, takes a slow sip of his drink and states there's nothing to forgive, she wasn't a bother. He cuts right through the pleasantries, asking what Hethnal really wants. With a sly smirk, the Marquis gets down to business. He reveals he's there to learn about Kieran's plans for seizing the throne and asks if a particular date has been decided. Kieran leans back, asking the Marquis what the big hurry is. With a hearty laugh, Hethnal admits that Kieran is as sharp as ever. He then lays out his sinister proposal. Reminding Kieran that the new palace will be completed by winter, he suggests a plan. He paints a picture of the emperor, eager to see his beautiful new building, meeting an unfortunate end right there. Hethnal calls this a poetic way to make room for a new ruler, clearly implying Chiron should be the one to take the throne. Chiron calmly repeats the Marcus's shocking plan to use the new palace unveiling to remove the emperor and seize the throne. Hethnal confirms, boasting that most nobles are already on their side. However, Chiron immediately pulls in the scheme. He brings up a major complication. The empress is expecting a child in the spring. Acting now, he warns, would cause a huge rift among the nobility and could even provoke other nations. Hethnal dismisses the concern, pushing for speed to prevent leaks. But Chiron scoffs at his supposed urgency. Chiron scoffs at the Marcus's supposed urgency, cutting straight to the man's real motive. He accuses Hethnal of rushing the coup just to make his daughter the empress with little risk. The Marquis flinches, caught off guard, and forces a nervous laugh, weakly denying the claim. With a cool chuckle, Chiron plays it off as a simple joke. He agrees to reconsider the timing, which Hethnal gratefully accepts. The old man then tries to save face, swearing his loyalty has always been to Chiron, but the Archduke's calm response shows he sees right through the act. With a final, sarcastic remark about the Marcus's kindness, Chiron shuts the door. Hethnal's nervous associate asks if the Archduke was against their plan. Hethnal scoffs, insisting he wasn't. The man presses, pointing out how many times Chiron has already stopped them. Unfazed, the Marquis tells him not to worry. He explains that no one despises the emperor more than Chiron, who has been used as a war puppet for years. Hethnal is confident the Archduke has finally decided it's better to take the throne himself than to be controlled. Hethnal continues to reassure his man, pointing to Chiron's engagement with as proof of his loyalty. But the real reason, he explains, is Chiron's deep-rooted hatred for the imperial family. A dark memory flashes by, showing a younger Chiron standing over a grievously wounded royal. Because of this history, Hethnal is completely convinced the Archduke would never betray their coup. But far away, Chiron sits alone in the quiet of his room, his true intentions remaining a complete mystery. The memory of what fuels Chiron's hatred comes rushing back. A younger version pleads with his brother, the Emperor, but receives only scorn. The Emperor coldly calls him immature for being upset about being forced to eliminate his own teacher, Duncan, in the war. Chiron trembles, haunted by the memory of the kind man he had to strike down. His brother scolds him for this display of emotion, declaring that the future Archduke of the Empire cannot afford to be so weak-willed. This brutal event is the source of all his pain. The memory of the Emperor's cruelty is sharp and brutal. He loomed over a younger Chiron, gripping a cord and vowing to fix his brother's pitiful attitude for good. With a cold command, he ordered Marcus Hethnal to shut the doors. A horrified servant was shoved out of the room, leaving Chiron trapped. The doors slammed shut, sealing him inside with his tormentor. Back in the present, Chiron grabs Hethnal's chin, his voice dripping with sarcasm as he asks if this is how one treats their only ruler. Ian interrupts Chiron with an urgent report. Lady Esther was seen walking in the gardens with Maluzin. Feeling responsible for letting the mermaid wander, Ian suggests confining Esther to her room as a punishment. But Chiron isn't worried at all. He calls Esther a clever woman, explaining that she's simply sizing up a potential rival. He believes that trying to shield Maluzin would only escalate the situation. Chiron decides the best option is to leave them be. Confident he has already shown Esther exactly where he stands. Chiron remains confident, believing he's shown Esther that he has no real interest in Maluzin. In his mind, once Esther confirms this for herself, she'll simply back down. But while he's feeling cheered, Esther is already making her move. She summons Maluzin's terrified maid, Anne, into her chambers. Putting on a sweet smile, Esther tells the nervous girl she only wants to get closer to Maluzin. Her friendly suggestion, that the mermaid should join them for the masquerade ball in a few days. It's an invitation that feels more like a summons. Esther flashes a beautiful but sharp smile, insisting that Anne must bring Maluzin. Totally flustered, Anne stammers out a weak excuse, claiming Maluzin isn't well enough to attend. Internally, though, the maid is firm. A strong instinct tells her she can't let Esther anywhere near the mermaid. Anne remembers Ian's warning. The Archduke ordered that no decisions be made about Maluzin without his direct approval. She is special to him. Seeing Anne's resolve, Esther sighs dramatically, asking if she's really being told no. Still trembling, Anne tries to apologize for refusing the lady's request. But Esther's friendly mask drops completely. Before the maid can even process what's happening, two of Esther's servants seize her and violently throw her to the marble floor. Esther looms over the crying girl, her voice dripping with venom. She clarifies that she wasn't asking for a favor, she was giving an order. With a beautiful but terrifying smile, Esther declares that they will now try this conversation again, leaving Anne powerless to refuse. Seeing that brute force isn't working, Esther changes her strategy. She calmly notes Anne's rigid posture, chalking it up to a lack of trust. Then, she offers a new proposal. With a chilling smile, She mentions that she's heard Anne has 3 strong young brothers. The maid flinches, terrified. Esther continues, suggesting the boys could learn a great deal by joining the war effort. Completely broken, Anne grabs Esther's dress, pleading that her brothers are too young. Esther leans in, asking if Anne really doesn't want her help. Esther's cruel words hang in the air as she talks about learning from practical experience. Completely broken, Anne trembles on the floor, all her fight gone. Through tears, she begs Esther to spare her brothers, promising to do exactly as she's told. With a twisted smile, Esther praises her for being a good little servant and says she'll be waiting for Melusine. The sinister meeting ends, and a few days pass at the Archduke's grand castle, setting the stage for whatever the cruel lady has planned. Anne carefully applies makeup on Melusine, getting her ready. Dressed in a beautiful new gown, Melusine looks absolutely radiant. She asks Anne where she's going, but the maid just flinches nervously. Changing the subject, Anne reminds her about the harvest festival that week. Melusine's eyes light up as she excitedly remembers all the flowers and candy. While the innocent mermaid gets lost in her happy memories, Anne quietly tells her that today is the last day of the festival, the perfect time for Esther's wicked plan to unfold. Looking terrified, Anne explains that there's a big banquet that evening. She tells Melusine she'll be attending, wearing a mask and meeting lots of new people. Melusine's eyes sparkle with excitement as she immediately asks if Kieran will be there. But before Anne can stammer out a reply, a sharp knock at the door makes her jump. The door creaks open, revealing a different maid who announces that Lady Esther has sent her to fetch Melusine. Hearing Esther's name, the mermaid looks up, utterly confused by this sudden change of plans. Melusine questions if Esther sent the new maid, who confirms the summons immediately. The maid adds a strange order. Melusine must wear shoes for the cold night. As Anne quickly kneels to help, the mermaid insists she doesn't like it, a bad feeling creeping in. Desperate, Anne begs her to just endure it for today. She then leans in and whispers a dire warning. Melusine might see Kieran at the banquet, and if she does, she absolutely must ask for his help. The sudden shift leaves Melusine completely stunned, wondering what Anne knows. Without another word, the new maid grabs Melusine and rushes her down the hallway, ignoring her pleas to wait. Stopping abruptly before a massive set of doors, the maid presents an ornate mask, ordering Melusine to put it on immediately. Utterly bewildered, the mermaid complies, her mind clinging to Anne's desperate warning. She hopes finding Kieran will clear up her confusion and explain why everything feels so terribly strange. With that last thought, she is pushed through the doors into a breathtakingly grand ballroom, filled with masked strangers. Melusine stares in wide-eyed wonder at the dazzling ballroom. Completely captivated by its grandeur, her awe is broken when a masked nobleman steps up, asking if she is lost. A bit flustered, the mermaid naively tells him and his companion that she wants to see Kieran. The men are taken aback by her informal use of the Archduke's name. One of them recognizes her unique pink hair, remembering she was the woman with his grace outside the castle. As whispers spread through the crowd, a loud shout suddenly echoes across the hall. The nobles immediately start gossiping about the mysterious pink-haired woman. One guest recognizes her mask, pointing out it's the kind worn by dancers. A blonde woman, Esther, smirks and suggests Kieran must have brought her to perform for them. The crowd bursts into laughter, praising the Archduke for the party's entertainment. Suddenly, a hand yanks Melusine's hair from behind. A nobleman sneers, wondering aloud where Kieran found such a rare specimen, treating her like an object on display for their amusement. The crowd closes in, demanding Melusine dance for them. Just as she cries out, a blonde woman swoops in, placing a hand on her shoulder. Melusine is shocked to see it's Esther, but this is no rescue. The noblewoman pulls her into a tight embrace, whispering that she doesn't know her place. Esther cruelly asks if she feels the crowd's desire, claiming it's no different from how Kieran treats her. Melusine denies it, but Esther's grimly tightens, savoring her pain. Esther whispers cruelly that no one is coming to save her, then gives Melusine a hard shove. The mermaid cries out, losing her balance and tumbling backward toward the unforgiving floor. Just as she's about to crash, a strong arm suddenly wraps around her waist, catching her in a swift motion. Completely stunned, she looks up at her masked savior, her heart pounding. Barely able to speak, she asks who he is, only to find herself held securely by the Archduke himself. Behind an ornate black and gold mask, Kieran's golden eyes are a raging inferno. A wave of pure relief crashes over Melusine as she breathes his name. He's saved her. But this is no gentle rescue. Without a single word to the bewildered crowd, Kieran grips her hand and yanks her forward, power walking straight out of the ballroom. The nobles who were just jeering now part like the sea, their faces turning pale with terror as they realize who they just tried to humiliate. Esther is frozen in place, her intricate purple butterfly mask a monument to her spectacular failure. Her plan has been utterly demolished, and Kieran doesn't even give her the satisfaction of a single glance. He pulls Melusine from the suffocating hall into the warm, golden light of the setting sun. Letting out a heavy sigh, his voice is low and possessive as he scolds her for disobeying him yet again. But Melusine, overwhelmed, simply looks up and whispers the honest truth. "I missed you." But her heartfelt plea is met with pure ice. Kieran just scoffs, brutally mocking her for roaming around dressed like a tramp just because she missed him. With a sharp tug, he rips the ornate red butterfly mask from her face, his golden eyes burning with cold fury. He sneers, asking if she wants him to treat her like the dancer everyone at the party took her for. Before she can even breathe, he obliterates the space between them, silencing her with a ruthless, possessive kiss. The harshness melts into a strange warmth, and against all logic, Melusine finds herself wanting more, her thoughts swirling like the pink flowers that magically appear around them. That's the final straw. Shattered, Melusine lunges forward and grabs his coat, desperately pleading for him to see her again. But her desperate plea is met with absolute ice. Instead of showing any warmth, Kieran's expression remains a cold, unreadable mask. He gently cups her cheek, but the gesture holds no affection. It's a prelude to annihilation. With chilling calm, he tells her she has completely misunderstood. "You are not particularly important to me," he states, the words cutting deeper than any blade. Her world shatters as he continues, brutally informing her that they never had a relationship and that any feelings she's developed are all in her head. Each word is a hammer blow, systematically dismantling her fairy tale fantasy. The hope in her bright blue eyes flickers and dies, replaced by utter bewilderment and pain. Having delivered the final, devastating verdict, Kieran drops his hand. Without a single backward glance, he turns and walks away, his powerful silhouette disappearing down the stone path. He leaves Melusine standing completely alone in the sun-drenched garden, utterly frozen as the crushing weight of his rejection finally sinks in, leaving her completely and totally broken. Just when she thought the pain couldn't possibly get any worse, a new predator swoops in to pick at the scraps of her shattered heart. It's none other than the venomous Lady Esther, her smug smile a twisted mask of false sympathy as she approaches the heartbroken Melusine. With the absolute audacity of a true villainess, she kicks aside the dancer's mask from the ball with the tip of her elegant shoe, sneering that it's a mark of the lowly. Esther's words are pure acid, dripping with condescending pity as she confirms that Kieran already sees her as nothing more. She calls Melusine a toy, a doll he can dress up and discard without a second thought. Every sentence is a precision strike, designed to obliterate any lingering hope. Esther twists the knife, admitting that yes, Kieran gets possessive when others mess with his things, but that's all it is. In the end, a doll is just a doll. With a final, crushing verdict, she declares that once Kieran is tired of playing, he will throw her away, exactly like he just did today. Having delivered her soul-crushing monologue, Esther turns, leaving Melusine utterly alone and drowning in a new wave of absolute despair. Esther's final words twist the knife. "You have been abandoned." With a venomous smirk and a flick of her elegant purple gown, she turns her back, leaving Melusine's world completely obliterated. The word echoes in the mermaid's mind, shattering her fragile hope into a million pieces. Her bright blue eyes go wide with pure, soul-crushing despair as Kieran's cold voice cuts through her thoughts. Do not bother any further. The scenes collide, and she instantly blames herself, wondering if she pushed him too much. But for a mermaid, abandoned is a death sentence. A terrifying truth surfaces from her memories. Her sisters, those who never bore children, were cast aside forever. A vision of a mermaid with a shimmering, pale blue tail floating in the lonely ocean flashes before her. There is no going back. As the golden sunset reflects in a single tear rolling down her cheek, the brutal reality crashes down. Her fairy tale is officially over. The man she thought was her fated Serenhide has just become her greatest tragedy, and he hasn't even looked back. But even abandoned, Melusine's heart refuses to give up. She tracks Kieran down in a vast, sun-drenched courtyard, the ornate fountain burbling behind her. Her voice, trembling behind her lacy mask, confesses the raw truth. "I came because I missed you, Kieran." The scene then shifts to a tense standoff against a beautiful golden sunset. Esther, the venomous blonde, plays the part of the concerned fiancé to absolute perfection, asking if he's lost something. But Kieran's face is a mask of cold indifference, his reply sharp and dismissive. Unfazed, Esther twists his coldness into a show of devotion, thanking him for being so concerned about her. Then, she springs her flawlessly cruel trap. In front of everyone, she uses an old festival legend to demand the final dance, a dance said to bind a couple for life. The absolute audacity. But Kieran is no one's fool. His golden eyes, reflecting the dying sun, narrow with cold fury. He confronts her directly, demanding to know why she went so far, fully aware she orchestrated Melusine's public humiliation. In response, Esther just smirks, feigning total ignorance. Esther's face twists into a venomous sneer, her voice a low hiss as she lectures Kieran on arming a doll he never intended to keep. She compares Melusine to a toxic fly that needs extermination. Believing she holds all the cards, she extends her hand with flawless arrogance, the ornate gold and white fan a symbol of her supposed authority. The entire ballroom holds its breath. This is it, the final move in her twisted game. She asks if he's sure he won't take her hand, her victory all but guaranteed in her mind. But Kieran just lets out a quiet sigh, not of conflict, but of sheer boredom. He looks at her outstretched hand and delivers the most brutal rejection possible. Regretfully, no. He doesn't even give her the dignity of a real excuse. Instead, he coolly states he left something in the garden and turns his back on her, the intricate silver embroidery on his shoulders glinting as he walks away. The public humiliation is absolute. Esther is left frozen, her hand still hanging in the air. Her face pales as her perfect mask shatters, her hand trembling as she clenches it into a white-knuckled fist of pure, unadulterated rage. She's just been obliterated in front of the entire nobility. While Esther implodes from the public disgrace, the true damage has already been done. Her psychological poison seeps directly into Melusine's soul, twisting her fated love into a horrifying death sentence. A beautiful memory of her mother's promise, that she could always come home, is violently shattered by Esther's venomous lie, that Kieran himself would obliterate their child. For our innocent mermaid, this is an absolute, unbearable truth. To protect a life that doesn't even exist yet, she makes the ultimate sacrifice. With a heart full of shattered dreams, she resolves to leave him forever. Her bare feet touch the sand as she turns toward the sea, planning the tragic story she'll tell. She'll lie, saying she was caught in a fishing net, that Kieran was a cruel mistake, a false Serenhide who never loved her. But as she tries to flee, her escape is brutally cut short. A hand clamps down on her wrist with crushing force. It's Kieran, his golden eyes blazing with possessive fury as he demands to know since when this was her room. Her quiet tragedy has just been interrupted by his roaring storm. Kieran's face twists into a mask of pure, possessive fury. He coldly reminds Melusine that this was her last chance, that his patience is absolutely obliterated. Before she can even stammer a reply, he moves with lightning speed. In one savage motion, he grabs her, his arm locking around her waist as he unceremoniously hauls her onto his massive black horse. Her cry is cut short as he mounts behind her, his iron grip like a cage. She pleads for him to wait, but he clamps a hand over her mouth, his voice a low growl ordering her to be silent. As the horse thunders away against the dramatic sunset sky, Melusine's confusion turns to anguish. Trapped against his chest, her red dress flowing wildly, she can feel his heavy breathing. Tears stream down her face as she accuses him of abandoning her. But Kieran just scoffs, denying the very concept. This is not abandonment. This is possession. A spark of desperate hope ignites within her. If he didn't leave her, then she has one last move to make. She has to find out if he can truly be her Serenhide. With her last shred of hope, Melusine makes her move. She surges forward, silencing his tirade with a desperate, all-or-nothing kiss. In that single, electrifying moment, her one desire floods her mind. She wants to bear his child, to truly become his Serenhide. But her gentle advance is met with absolute, unforgiving possession. As her hand slips, his grip tightens on her thigh, a brutal claim on what he sees as his property. In one fluid motion, he yanks her forward, throwing her across the horse's saddle. His voice is a low growl, an undeniable command. Bend over and hold on. He presses into her, his words a venomous promise. How dare you even think of running away from me? Stop thinking. I'll make sure you won't be able to. Her entire body trembles, a terrified cry escaping her lips as she pleads that it's too fast. But Kieran is relentless. With the horse's reins squeezed tight in his fist, he leans in, whispering a final, chilling assurance against her ear. I'm right here. The night is still and the moon hangs high outside the window, casting a cold light on the discarded red dress and black coat slung over a chair. Pinned beneath him, Melusine's heart hammers against her ribs, her vibrant pink hair fanned out across the sheets like a blooming, chaotic flower. Kieran's voice is a low growl as he utters her name, his touch making her shudder. But this isn't about passion, it's an assertion of absolute dominance. His golden eyes burn into hers, and he gives a single, chilling command. Don't close your eyes. Keep looking at me. The chaotic night finally dissolves into a brilliant morning. Golden sunlight streams into the chamber where Melusine blinks awake, her mind a total blur. As she slowly sits up, she spots a small, shimmering object on the gray bedsheets. Before she can process it, Kieran is awake, coolly asking if she's finally up after passing out. Flustered and trying to hide her embarrassment, she points, asking what it is. He glances down, completely unfazed, and delivers the jaw-dropping answer. A pearl, of course. Jackpot. The ancient, brutal legends were all true. Kieran confirms it without missing a beat. It's not just a pearl. Legends say it's a jewel from the sea goddess herself. The old tales of mermaid tears turning into priceless gems are not just stories, they're a jaw-dropping reality. As he holds the shimmering orb to her cheek, his mind flashes back to the previous Archduke, Hethnal, and his brutal obsession. Kieran had assumed the man tortured her relentlessly to get these pearls. He asks why she never produced them for him. But Melusine, with pure innocence, just giggles, saying his touch tickles as his fingers brush through her pink hair. She reveals her kind doesn't cry, then flips the question back on him, asking when he cries. The simple question triggers a dark, sepia-toned memory of pure agony. Shoving the trauma down, he says his tears are worthless and pulls her into a deep kiss. As he pulls back, she looks at him with shining eyes and drops the biggest bombshell yet. She wants to have his baby. Kieran is completely unfazed by her bombshell request for a baby. A low, mocking chuckle escapes him as he looks down at her, a dangerous smirk playing on his lips. He finds her naive audacity utterly entertaining, the messy black hair framing his face, giving him a wild look. Leaning back against the plush pillows of the massive, gilded bed, he casually agrees, "Fine, whatever you say," as if she just asked for a glass of water. But their intimate morning is absolutely obliterated when his aide Ian bursts into the room, his glasses practically flying off his face in pure panic. He desperately demands to know how much longer His Grace intends to hide away here. Kieran, lounging with the authority of a king, coldly asks why it matters, reminding Ian that this is his castle. But a frantic Ian corrects him, this is just a seaside villa. The real jackpot? Marquis Hethnal has been waiting all night, and it seems he's heard all about the scandalous incident at the masquerade ball. But Kieran is a statue of pure, unbothered arrogance. He glances at a shell-shocked Ian, his mind flashing to the waiting Marquis and his smug daughter, Esther. With a voice colder than a winter grave, he declares they're all operating under a massive delusion. They think he's cornered? It's the exact opposite. They are the ones who need him. The absolute audacity of it leaves Ian stammering, but before he can even form a sentence, Kieran delivers the kill shot. He calmly threatens to leak the truth, that Ian and the Marquis are plotting a revolt. Checkmate. The color drains from Ian's face. Kieran rises with lethal grace, moving past an ornate potted fern by his chair. He places a heavy hand on Ian's shoulder, reminding him this isn't just about victory, it's about survival. He warns his loyal aide not to be short-sighted, because after everything they've clawed their way through, they will not let some triviality lay their entire master plan to waste. Meanwhile, far from the capital's dark political games, the scene shifts to a sun-drenched villa of jaw-dropping opulence. This isn't just any room, it's Triton Castle's private villa by the sea, and Melusine is taking in the view from a plush, white sofa. Her maid, and is absolutely buzzing, explaining this was Kieran's childhood home and that bringing her here is a massive deal. But then, and drops an emotional bombshell. She reveals that Count Ian told her everything, that after the disastrous masquerade, Melusine didn't just forgive and she specifically requested for her to be her personal maid, insisting on her service above all others. The weight of this pure-hearted forgiveness absolutely crushes, and tears stream down her face as she collapses, apologizing for her selfish fear. But Melusine isn't having it. She wraps the crying maid in a warm, comforting squeeze, her eyes sparkling with genuine affection as she says the two words and desperately needed to hear, "I missed you." In a world of cold calculation, Melusine's simple, unconditional kindness is a power all its own. As and continues to sob, promising to never betray her again. Her guilt is palpable. Trying to regain her composure, she quickly offers to draw Melusine a bath and brush her hair. But a cold, commanding voice slices through the air, stopping her dead. There's no need to doll her up like that. Both of them whip around to see the Archduke himself, Kieran, standing with his arms crossed by the ornate gold doorway, his expression unreadable. While Anne's face drains of all color, Melusine's absolutely explodes with pure, unfiltered joy. Screaming his name, she doesn't hesitate for a second, launching herself across the room and slamming into his arms. She buries her face in his chest, yelling that she missed him. For a moment, Kieran is stunned, but then a small smile plays on his lips. He effortlessly scoops her into his arms, lifting her off her feet. As Melusine giggles, asking to be put down, the terrified maid gets the hint loud and clear. With a knowing smile, and quietly slips away, leaving them to their reunion. With Melusine in his arms, Kieran pulls her into the grand bath, the warm water swirling around them. His question is cold and calculating. Does your tail only come back when you're in the sea? When she meekly confirms, a dark satisfaction glints in his golden eyes. Leaning in, he presses a possessive kiss to her neck and whispers, "Good." Kieran explains it's the lingering scent of fire. He drops a historical bombshell. This entire villa almost burned to the ground when he was just a 5-year-old boy. The revelation hits Melusine like a physical blow. All thoughts of herself vanish, replaced by pure, frantic concern. She grabs his face, her eyes wide with terror, demanding to know if he was hurt. Unfazed by her panic, Kieran looks down at her, his expression unreadable. "Where else?" he asks, his voice chillingly calm. "I was right here, in this very room." His words hang in the air as reality melts away, plunging us into the blistering inferno of his past. We see a much younger Kieran, his golden eyes bright with an innocence long since scorched away by tragedy. Dressed in a crisp white shirt with a neat blue bow, he's meticulously carving a wooden sword, a heartfelt gift for his newborn nephew. He even plans to decorate the hilt with a beautiful topaz birthstone, a symbol of protection. But his real, desperate hope is to finally earn a sliver of affection from his cold, distant older brother. This precious moment of childhood hope, however, is about to be utterly obliterated. Suddenly, the grand doors are thrown open with a violent swing, shattering the peace. A terrified guard screams for His Highness to evacuate immediately. The entire villa is being consumed by a roaring, unstoppable inferno, trapping the young prince inside the very living nightmare he just described to Melusine. The world explodes in a cataclysm of fire. A wave of superheated air blasts through the grand hall, sending servants reeling from the sheer force of the concussion. While his attendants scream in absolute terror, a guard points towards an exit, desperately trying to hustle the young prince to safety. But the very structure around them begins to disintegrate. A massive section of the ornate ceiling groans before crashing down, sending them sprawling amidst splintered wood and crumbling stone. As the adults choke on smoke and give into panic, a young Kieran, his face already smudged with soot, remains shockingly calm. His guard screams for him to get on his back, but Kieran refuses. In a moment of jaw-dropping clarity, the child declares that a blind rush to the exit is a death sentence. With a strength that defies his age, he rips a heavy red tablecloth from a nearby table, thrusting pieces at the bewildered adults. His command is absolute. Cover your faces. He, a mere boy, is now leading them through hell itself. Outside, survivors watch in horror as the Grand Palace is completely ravaged by the inferno, flames bursting from every ornate window. An investigation begins immediately. A terrified servant stammers that the fire erupted in a second-floor hallway, a spot with absolutely nothing flammable. Young Kieran, his mind already working like a master strategist, processes the damning information. This wasn't an accident, it was arson. A haunting vision of his brother, sitting aloof on a golden chair, flashes in his mind. The weight of his heroism and this dark realization finally crushes him. He staggers, his small body giving out as panicked attendants scream his name, catching him as he collapses from the smoke. Years later, the memory is a festering wound. The now emperor confronts Kieran, demanding to know why he disrespects the empress. Kieran's excuse is ice-cold and calculated. She is tired, and the baby is coming. But the emperor explodes, his hand clenching over his face in a mask of fury. This isn't just any child, he roars. It's the next prince, the heir to the entire empire. The Emperor's fury absolutely explodes, sending a gilded chair flying across the polished floor with a deafening clunk. The violent act shatters the present, dragging Kieran back into the venomous memory that forged him into the man he is today. He sees himself as a small boy, flinching before the raw tyranny of his older brother. The Emperor's voice is pure poison, spitting that he only took Kieran in out of pity to shield him from the nasty rumors that clung to him like a shroud. He screams that this pity has curdled into absolute terror, confessing his deepest paranoia. Kieran possesses the raw power to conquer the entire empire. In his twisted mind, this means Kieran will one day come to kill him and usurp the throne. A vision of a burning mansion flashes through the chaos, a clear accusation of a past assassination attempt. This is the root of all the hatred. The day Kieran's supposed savior revealed himself as a paranoid monster, consumed by fear of the very weapon he had raised. The Emperor's paranoia was once pathetic in Kieran's eyes. RMC genuinely couldn't fathom being accused of treason, even working himself to the bone to prove his unwavering loyalty. But the bitter irony is absolutely crushing. In a gut-wrenching twist, Kieran admits his brother's terror was justified all along. The memory flashes to its horrifying conclusion. The Emperor lies dead on the cold marble, a pool of crimson spreading from his body as Kieran stands over him, the grim prophecy fulfilled by his own hand. But just as the endless nightmare threatens to consume him completely, a gentle light cuts through the darkness. Melusine appears like a celestial being, her soft hands wiping away the bloodstains of his past. Her ethereal voice washes over him, a magical balm promising to erase the trauma. Wrapping her arms around the broken Grim Reaper, her flowing pink hair cocoons him from his demons. For the first time in years, her presence lulls the monster into a deep, peaceful slumber, a miracle no medicine could ever grant. The peace in Kieran's mind is shattered by the chaos of his empire. An urgent report slams onto his desk. Archduke Barton's relatives have started a full-blown rebellion, declaring their land independent. The sheer audacity. While his aide, Count Luthern, explains their forces are substantial, Kieran's expression remains ice-cold. There is no shock, no hesitation. With a chilling finality, he declares they will finish what they started, ordering a fleet to be gathered by dawn. He's ready to obliterate them. But then comes the jaw-dropping twist. As Luthern prepares for war, Kieran commands him to stay behind. The confused aide jolts, asking why, and Kieran's true obsession is revealed. He is to watch Melusine, who stands innocently behind a decorative glass door, completely unaware she is the center of this new strategy. Kieran will not risk another incident. But that's not all. He asks for the special item he commissioned from the blacksmith. The aide slides a box forward, and Kieran opens it with a sharp clack. Inside isn't a necklace or a gift, but an exquisite, jeweled shackle, a silver and blue masterpiece of imprisonment. With a terrifying smirk, he declares this is the perfect leash to keep his mermaid bound to him forever. The scene shifts to a surprisingly tender moment. Melusine clings to Kieran, her vibrant pink hair spilling over his white shirt as she asks if he must go. He promises to return quickly, but then a dangerous smirk curls his lips. Leaning in, he pinches her cheek and playfully asks if they should go one more round before he leaves. But Melusine isn't playing games. With a serious pout, she drops an absolute bombshell. "I want to have a baby." Her blue eyes are wide and pleading as she begs him, desperate for a child with her Serenhide. For a moment, the Archduke is stunned silent. But Melusine's fragile hope is instantly poisoned by the memory of Esther's venomous threat that Kieran himself would eliminate her and their child. Desperate for reassurance, she waits for his answer, needing him to prove the cruel words wrong. His expression hardens into ice. With chilling indifference, he asks, "You want my child?" Before she can reply, he dismisses her entire existence with two brutal words, "A fish," pressing his hand firmly against the intricate pattern of her purple gown, asserting his absolute, cruel ownership. His brutal words are just the start of her punishment. He shoves her onto the grand chaise lounge, his voice a low growl as he commands her to move, to submit completely. Lost in a haze of terror and utter confusion, Melusine shivers under his touch, every creak of the furniture a testament to his absolute dominance. But just as she thinks she understands, a cold, metallic clink shatters the moment. Kieran lifts her leg, and her eyes widen in disbelief. A delicate, jewel-encrusted shackle now glitters on her ankle. His aide, Ian, watches with growing concern, noting that the vibrant mermaid has been utterly despondent. While she's been learning human customs like using a fork, Ian sees right through the act. This isn't about fitting in. It's a desperate attempt to please the man she misses with every fiber of her being. Her whole world now revolves around his return. Convinced she can see his ship from the shore, Melusine confronts Ian directly, begging him to let her go to the beach. The stressed-out aide, hand pressed to his face in exasperation, initially shuts her down with a firm no. But faced with the combined force of Anne's pleading and Melusine's shimmering, tear-filled eyes, his resolve completely shatters. He caves, and under the pale moonlight, Melusine and Anne share a triumphant high-five. But as she finally stands before the waves in her flowing yellow dress, the joy vanishes. She turns to Anne, her voice small, and asks a devastating question. Why does everyone hate the sea? Anne's answer is gut-wrenching. She explains that the people of Triton don't hate the ocean. It's their home. But it's also the thing they fear the most, revealing her own father was lost to the waves. But before Melusine can process this tragedy, a massive splash shatters the quiet night. A pod of dolphins explodes from the moonlit water, and Melusine's face lights up. She excitedly calls them Inia and, oblivious to Anne's fear, declares she knows them. In a flash of pure, innocent excitement, she tells a bewildered and she can introduce her, convinced that meeting her friends will cure the maid's fear of the sea forever. Before Ian or Anne can even scream, Melusine dives headfirst into the icy depths, her yellow hair ribbon trailing behind her like a final wave goodbye. Absolute terror grips the shore. But it's Ian who realizes the true horror. He grabs his collar, his face pale with dread, shouting that the shackles on her ankles are made of zealard, a cursed gem that exponentially expands in salt water, turning into an inescapable, watery grave. The curse activates instantly. The zealard shackles on Melusine's ankles flare with dark magic, expanding into an inescapable, crushing weight. Her playful dive becomes a terrifying plunge into the abyss. Gurgling for air, her yellow dress billowing around her, she feels the unforgiving pressure drag her down. Her mind screams in regret. She remembers Kieran's cold command to stay away from the sea. She broke her promise. As her vision fades, she wonders if the ocean itself has betrayed her. But just as the darkness closes in, a figure obliterates the surface. Without a single moment of hesitation, Kieran dives into the icy depths. Back on the shore, and can only weep as Ian watches in absolute horror. But then, with a massive splash, Kieran erupts from the waves, Melusine's limp body held securely in his arms. Soaked to the bone, he looks down at her. With a chilling smirk, he gives her hand a possessive squeeze and asks, "So, Mel, you haven't changed your mind, have you?" With a violent gasp, Melusine's eyes fly open, her body jolting upright in bed. The horrifying nightmare of sinking into the cold, lonely abyss still clings to her, the memory of Esther's treachery a fresh wound. Her heart hammers in her chest as she clutches the delicate lace of her blue nightgown, trying to escape the phantom chill. A calm voice slices through her terror. "You're awake." She looks up to see Kieran, sitting in a gilded chair, watching her with an unreadable expression. Stunned, she whispers his name. As she tries to rise, he's by her side in an instant, his hand on her shoulder, gently commanding her to stay still. He pats her head, his voice deceptively soft as he tells her she needs to rest after nearly drowning. But the gentle act is a mask. His expression instantly hardens, his golden eyes turning to ice as his voice drops to a chilling whisper. "Why did you do it?" he demands. Before she can even form a word, he lunges forward, his hand seizing her ankle in an iron grip. A pained cry escapes her as she feels cold metal, a chain he has shackled to her, marking her as his prisoner for good. Kieran's voice is a low, menacing growl, his billowy lavender shirt doing nothing to hide his absolute fury. "Why continue to disobey me?" he hisses. "Can your beastly nature not help it?" Utterly terrified, Melusine can only stammer out the innocent truth. She just saw some dolphins. But her explanation is brutally obliterated. Kieran scoffs, twisting her simple joy into a sickness, cruelly suggesting she enjoys the pain of his punishment. He punctuates the disgusting accusation by squeezing her wrist, his powerful grip crushing the delicate, lattice-patterned lace on her sleeve. She cries out, pleading with him to remove the shackles. But his answer is pure ice. "Why would I?" he retorts, coldly stating she might just run away for good next time. He pins her to the bed, his shadow engulfing her as he warns that he won't always be there to save her. Deciding words are useless. A dark smirk spreads across his face as he reaches for her, silencing any protest with terrifying finality as she can only whisper his name. But as his rage peaks, her terror twists into a shocking plea. "Hold me," she whispers, her voice trembling as she reaches for him. "Take me." This unexpected surrender shatters Kieran's iron control. All his fury, his twisted trauma, and his possessive need unleashes in a single, crushing kiss that obliterates her fear and claims her completely. The scene melts into the next morning, golden sunlight pouring through the ornate windows of the grand chamber. Melusine stirs, her vibrant pink hair fanned out across the pristine white pillows. A hand gently brushes her cheek, and Kieran's calm voice cuts through her groggy state, telling her it's time to get up. As he leans in, planting a light kiss on her cheek, she murmurs that it tickles, completely unaware of the shift in power. He pulls back, sitting by the bed with a tray of food, a thoughtful look on his face. He was just wondering, he says, why doesn't she just take off her clothes? Completely ignoring his invasive question, Melusine's focus shifts with an intense new purpose. She raises a hand, demanding to know something, and gently touches his arm to get his full attention. But Kieran is in no mood for questions. He cuts her off with a sharp enough babbling, delivering a playful but firm flick to her forehead. The little sting is enough to snap her focus to the gorgeous meal laid out before her, a beautiful salad adorned with a bright yellow lemon slice. Her eyes go wide, her previous thoughts obliterated by the sudden gasp of food. Kieran smirks, telling her to stop trying so hard and just eat with her hands if she has to. But the mermaid is resolute. She grabs the gold-handled utensils, stubbornly declaring she can do it. With a sigh, Kieran points out she's holding them completely wrong. Embarrassed, she tries to adjust, her hands trembling as she attempts to cut a piece of fish. The fork slips with a jarring screech, skittering across the plate. Before she can get flustered, Kieran moves. In one smooth motion, he's behind her, his body pressing against hers as he clasps her hands, guiding them with absolute control. Stunned, Melusine can only whisper why she's trying so hard. She just wants to be like him. Her confession hits him like a physical blow. She didn't just learn to use a fork to become more human, she did it all just for a chance to see him smile. Her cheeks flush a deep pink as she admits she missed him every single day, the innocent words completely disarming the battle-hardened Archduke. For a second, the world melts away into a soft, glowing haze as he looks down at her. But the tender moment is shattered when he leans in close, his forehead almost touching hers, and drops an absolute bombshell. He is to attend the Emperor's birthday banquet and will be gone for an entire month. Panic immediately grips Melusine. A month is an eternity. Her hand fidgets anxiously with the golden utensils on the table as she desperately asks if she can come with him. A vision of the vast, terrifyingly empty ocean flashes in her mind, the source of her deepest fears. She confesses that when Kieran is gone, she's scared of being alone. For a tense moment, he is utterly silent. Then, in a jaw-dropping move that changes everything, he agrees. He will take her with him, straight into the heart of the Empire. And so, their grand procession begins. A massive wooden carriage rattles down the road, flanked by a powerful retinue of Imperial knights, their pristine white capes billowing in the wind. Inside, a worried and peeks out, stunned by the sheer number of soldiers. But Melusine is completely oblivious, asking what an Imperial palace even is. And patiently explains it's the home of the Emperor, the single person in the entire Empire ranked higher than Kieran. The absolute audacity of this fact is unthinkable to our mermaid. Her cheeks puff out in pure indignation as she furiously insists Kieran is obviously better. Seeing this raw loyalty, and can't help but tease her, asking if she really likes him that much. A deep blush and a firm nod are her only answer, and is bewildered, reminding her of the time Kieran's cruel, magical anklets nearly ended her for good. A painful memory of him carrying her limp, dripping body flashes by. But Melusine just wiggles her now-free ankles, the traumatic memory fading away. Her priorities have completely shifted. She doesn't want the ocean anymore. She wants Kieran's child. A hazy, romantic vision of him holding her surfaces as she wonders if that's the only reason she wishes to stay. As a romantic vision of her and Kieran fades, Melusine's resolve hardens. She now understands her true desire. More than just having his child, she wants him. She needs to be absolutely certain he is her Sarenhide. But Anne's next question shatters her fantasy. Do you love his grace? The word love triggers a chilling memory, pulling Melusine into a dark, watery abyss. Ghostly voices from her sisters, trapped in glowing blue bubbles, echo a brutal, ancient law. A mermaid and a human can never promise eternal love. The prophecy is absolute. She gets one chance, and then she must abandon her Sarenhide for good. They gave her a terrifying, unbreakable command. She must never, ever fall in love with him. The weight of this forbidden fate comes crashing down, and a sharp pain throbs in her chest. She clutches her heart, the cruel words of the past ravaging her present. Seeing her distress, and rushes to her side, promising to stay with her no matter what. Meanwhile, Kieran is already playing a lethal game of chess with his unseen enemies. Under the cloak of night, his aide Ian confirms their forces are ready. But Kieran, ever the perfectionist, isn't satisfied. He instantly doubles down on security, increasing the guard on Melusine's bedroom from 5 soldiers to 7. Ian hesitates, but Kieran's logic is flawless. He saw fresh tracks on a deserted mountain path, proof positive that assassins were closing in. The Archduke's plan is as simple as it is brutal. Extinguish every light, lure the intruders into a false sense of security, and then obliterate them in a flawless ambush. As a bonfire crackles defiantly in the dark, the castle becomes a silent death trap. But inside, Melusine's enhanced senses are the first to sound the alarm. She urgently wakes and, whispering that something is wrong. A heartbeat later, the night shatters. The glorious clang of steel erupts as Kieran's knights spring the trap, meeting the shadowy invaders head-on in a brutal clash. Inside, pure chaos erupts. While Anne screams that they're under attack, Melusine's panic instantly mutates into ferocious, protective instinct. Her mind is screaming one name, Kieran. Ignoring her maid's terrified pleas to hide, Melusine's eyes lock onto a thick, decorative metal bar on the balcony railing. With a surge of unbelievable strength, she rips the heavy ironwork clean from its mountings. Her expression is one of absolute resolve. If her Sarenhide is in danger, she's not just going to watch. Without a second of hesitation, she leaps from the balcony and into the fiery battle below. Down in the courtyard, Kieran is a whirlwind of death amidst the flames. He faces a hooded assassin, coolly asking who sent him before scoffing. Knowing the answer is meaningless, the killer lunges, screaming that this is the will of the Empire Sun. But Kieran moves like a phantom. In a jaw-dropping display of combat instinct, he sidesteps the dual daggers, snatches a heavy stone vase, and smashes it across the assassin's skull. Before the man even hits the ground, Kieran's blade flashes through the air, delivering a merciless slash that ends the confrontation instantly. With the final assassin silenced, the heavens themselves seem to weep. A cold rain begins to fall, sizzling against the hot embers and washing over the courtyard now littered with mangled bodies. Kieran stands alone amidst the absolute carnage, his chest heaving, the ornate pattern on his vest spattered with crimson. The rain can't wash away the stench of blood or the memory of his enemy's desperate screams for mercy. Pleas he utterly ignored. While this absolute demon stands drenched in victory and gore, the scene flashes to Melusine, sleeping soundly in her bed, blissfully unaware of the slaughter her protector has just unleashed. Back in the chilling downpour, Kieran's sword drips a final red tear onto the slick stone. A voice softly calls his name. He looks up, his face a chilling canvas of exhaustion and fresh blood, a dark river carving a path down past his piercing golden eye. The Grim Reaper has finished his work, but the night's horrors are far from over. The aftermath is grim, Kieran's knights moving with torches through the misty woods, securing the field of obliterated assassins. The scene snaps back to the castle where Melusine paces, a knot of pure dread twisting in her stomach. Suddenly, the chamber doors click open. Kieran stands there, a chilling vision of a warrior fresh from the slaughter, his immaculate blue uniform ravaged by streaks of fresh crimson. Her relieved cry is cut short as he stalks toward her, his voice dropping to an ice-cold whisper, grilling her for her defiance. But the anger is a facade. With a surge of motion, he grabs her, his composure finally cracking as he unleashes his true feelings, not of fury, but of absolute terror. He roars that she nearly died, right before his very eyes. This merciless killer, who fears nothing, was petrified of losing her. The rage in his golden eyes melts into raw, aching regret. He whispers a quiet apology, his voice thick with an emotion she's never heard before, admitting he was just so scared of her getting hurt. But their fragile moment of peace is utterly obliterated. An attendant approaches, his formal suit immaculate, his voice cutting through the quiet like glass. He announces they've been expected, His Majesty the Emperor has summoned the Archduke and demands his immediate presence. The warmth vanishes from Kieran's face in an instant, replaced by the cold, unreadable mask of the predator he is. Melusine feels the shift, a nervous twitch betraying her fear as the tension skyrockets. Without a word to her, Kieran turns to his aide Ian, his command sharp and absolute. "Take care of things here." As Ian leads a bewildered Melusine away, RMC walks alone down the long, gleaming hall, his white sash flowing behind him like a funeral shroud. He stops before a massive gilded portrait, his thoughts a raging storm. Another attendant jolts him from his trance, apologizing that the Emperor is still in bed. Kieran's lip curls in a sarcastic sneer. He turns back to the painting, a portrait of his uncle, the late Emperor, his hand resting on the shoulder of a faceless boy. His voice is low, laced with years of pain, as he mutters a single, haunting word. "Uncle." Kieran's single, resentful word triggers a violent storm of memories. A flashback slams into his mind. A much younger, blonder boy giggles with pure adoration, hugging his uncle and promising to be just like him when he grows up. But the sweet memory instantly corrupts. The late Emperor's warm smile twists into a sinister glance, his form warping into a demonic silhouette engulfed in a terrifying, blood-red aura of absolute betrayal. The illusion of a loving family is obliterated. Just as quickly, the vision shatters with a drunken shout from the present. The Emperor himself, now a sloppy, pathetic mess in a flowing red robe, stumbles down the grand staircase, clutching a wine bottle like a scepter. He deliriously mistakes Kieran for his long-dead uncle. Kieran's face is a mask of pure ice, his voice cutting through the stupor with a formal, "Your Majesty." But the Emperor just laughs it off, closing the distance and grabbing Kieran's lapel with the absolute audacity to ask if his Kieran has been safe and sound. The Emperor's drunken panic turns to pathetic relief, wailing about how he almost lost his beloved uncle. But Kieran sits like a marble statue, his expression completely blank as he endures the pathetic display. The Emperor's concern then melts into a twisted, condescending psychoanalysis, sneering that Kieran has always been a soulless puppet, incapable of smiling, crying, or even showing anger. This, he declares, is the only reason he's survived this long. With a smug grin, the Emperor reveals the royal family's deepest fear, that Kieran was a lion they couldn't control. But he scoffs at the idea, calling Kieran nothing more than a well-trained hunting dog, first for his father and now for him. A chilling vision of a young Kieran being brutally broken, symbolized by thick iron chains, flashes through the room. The Emperor's confidence is absolute as he picks up his wine bottle again, convinced of one fatal truth: a loyal dog would never devour its master. He has no idea the beast he's taunting is starving. With breathtaking arrogance, the Emperor taps the wine bottle against Kieran's shoulder, a blatant display of dominance. Kieran's jaw tightens, his hand clenching into a white-knuckled fist by his side, the only sign of the inferno raging beneath his icy exterior. He rises to leave, his patience obliterated, but the Emperor physically shoves him back down onto the ornate gold-trimmed sofa. The loyal dog isn't dismissed yet. With a cruel smirk, the Emperor reveals there's another task. He's heard the Mekalan Kingdom sent a delegation now that the Empress is pregnant, and he wants Kieran to travel to the western border to welcome them. Squeezing the neck of the bottle, his voice drips with condescending poison. He calls it an easy enough task, absolutely certain his favorite war puppet will obey without question. The sheer contempt is suffocating, but Kieran's cold, golden eyes reveal nothing, masking the murder simmering just below the surface. Meanwhile, back at the castle, a completely oblivious Melusine is finally set loose in the gardens. As her maid and rushes off on an errand, the mermaid's attention is immediately stolen by a stunningly beautiful blue butterfly fluttering by. With the pure, unfiltered joy of a child, she blazes barefoot down the stone path after it, a blur of pink hair and white fabric against the lush green. Her chase leads her right into a secluded, private grove where she accidentally snaps a twig underfoot. The sharp sound shatters the peace. A man with magnificent, sparkling blonde hair jolts from his rest, his eye twitching in annoyance. He whips around, furious, demanding to know who dares to trespass in his private sanctuary. But instead of terror, Melusine just gasps, her eyes wide with absolute awe. She completely ignores his anger and blurts out that he's the prettiest person she has ever seen. The man is left utterly speechless, completely bewildered by her reaction. She's convinced she's just stumbled upon a real-life fairy. The man's aristocratic rage completely evaporates replaced by utter bewilderment. He was ready to unleash hell on this trespasser, but her genuine, starstruck question about him being a fairy short-circuits his brain. Before he can unleash a tirade about her insolence, his gaze drifts down and catches a glimmer of light. It's an intricate, gem-studded anklet shackled to her foot, a Z-alert. His entire demeanor shifts. Realizing he's in his uncle's territory, he connects the dots. This must be the Archduke's infamous new pet. A calculating smirk spreads across his face. Playing along with her delusion, he coolly agrees, "Sure I am," then flips the script, demanding to know who she is. He reaches out, and she flinches back, timidly introducing herself as Melusine. His eyes glint with newfound interest as he compliments the pretty shackle on her ankle. With a voice dripping with condescending charm, he observes that someone must think she is very precious. Before she can even process the word, he lunges forward, his hand grasping her wrist with a chilling possessiveness. The Emperor's grip vanishes as he scoffs, utterly disappointed. He lounges on a mossy rock, looking down on her like a discarded toy. "What a shame," he sneers, his voice dripping with condescension. "I thought you'd be more entertaining." He declares her boring and turns to leave, but then a manipulative glint flashes in his eyes. With a chillingly charming smile, he asks if she'll promise to waste time with him again, sealing her fate with a simple nod. Later that night, the castle's calm is obliterated. A frantic aide, his emerald green coat a blur, slams the grand doors open, startling and Melusine. He's panicking, yelling that His Majesty somehow found out about the mermaid. He clutches his head, revealing the situation has become a political nightmare. Then, he delivers the final, crushing blow. The Emperor has summoned Melusine to the palace. And as the news lands, the Emperor himself lounges in the dark, a smug, triumphant smirk on his face as red wine trickles into his glass. His game has just begun.